Evening, everyone. I hope that you had a great Thanksgiving. We will jump into the workshop, which we have 30 minutes on the agenda for this item, which I'm sure will be the first of a few conversations that we have. So I'll go ahead and read the item. Dan, we'll turn it over to you, and then I believe we'll have an update from PGAL. So we have update and discussion on the city center. Dan, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Mayor. So the city center, just to sort of set the stage, it's our 160 acres that we have just north of Valencia, just east of the Del Bello Lake subdivision. It's sort of, I guess, gathered the name of city center a few years ago, and we've had several discussions over the years, but the one thing that we haven't had is money yet to actually develop this. So before we start looking at budget ideas, and if we want to talk about bonds or, however we want to pay for this, we need to for sure figure out exactly what we want to put there. So this council actually identified this item in our planning session earlier in the year. So I thought it'd be a great way to sort of conclude our calendar year and talk about it once more. So Jeff has probably been the only person that's been involved since the beginning, I guess, since its first inception. So so he can probably tell you if it's been thought of, or if it hadn't been thought of, or what could work or what won't work. So Jeff Gerber with PGAL, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Stan. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jeff Gerber with PGAL. And as Dan said, yes, I've been involved, probably not to the very, very beginning, but from an initial conceptualization of this idea.
Jeff, I know you're on the taller side like me. If we could have you a little closer to the mic. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
How's that?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So what I was going to do tonight is do a little bit of refresh and then a little bit of update. So the first part of this will be refresh. So back in 2019 was when there were 3 initial schemes that were developed about how the city could utilize this property that you had just purchased. They all contained a very large recreational component, both in terms of soccer, softball, baseball fields. All of these 3 schemes have the same components of that. But in addition to that, there was a large mixed-use retail component. There was a vision of the city buildings being consolidated on this property in some form or fashion. And so these 3 different ideas were really about how can these different uses be put into this property and what would it look like if that happened. So I'm going to quickly just go through these. This was Scheme A. Again, these were 2019 versions. This option had basically the mixed-use commercial part, which is in the upper left corner off of Del Bello, was really centered around a lake. Right below that was where the city buildings would be located, and there was this boulevard that ran through that property. The second idea we called Village Park. It had the same mixed-use office, hotel, retail along DeBello, but it also had a lake that was sort of part of a larger park space that divided the mixed-use from the city buildings component, which was right below that area. And then the third idea we called Central Park area, where we used the public spaces to really become the focal point of the mixed-use area. Had a big amphitheater that also had a lake before you got to the city facilities at the south. So at that time, the council looked at all of these and expressed a preference for option B, the Village Park. So I'm just going to spend just a quick minute to go through that in a little bit more detail. This is the exhibit I showed you a minute ago, just at a larger scale. But this was the one that had a green space with a lake, that had a farmer's market, other cultural components that would be located in the center. And then you had the retail spaces, hotel, off of DeBello, and then the city components below that. This is just a blow-up version of that, so you can see a little bit better. You can see at the time, the city buildings included City Hall, included the police department, it included a library, it included a civic center, senior kind of center, So basically, all of the city services located in this one area we called Manvel City Square. And this was a 3D sketch that was done at the time to kind of give you an idea about scale and density. So since that time, lots have changed. Obviously, your city has grown a lot. It was a few years ago when all of this is done. And so the city manager had noted that there was feedback that wanted to be incorporated into an updated exhibit. So that's what I'm going to show you now. This is based upon those updated ideas. What is a little bit different, it still has the fields, but it has a lot less of them. It has 7 multi-use fields that are located on the right side of the property. It still has the 3 championship facilities located on the south part of the property. Still has the retail hotel component, Alpha de Bello. But the biggest changes here is that there's a large wetlands area that runs through that site. And initially, the idea was maybe we could work around that in some different component through some more workarounds with the city's engineering team. It was decided that we probably should let the wetlands be a feature and not try to let that be a part of the character of the property. So that is different in this idea. In addition to that, obviously, the city made a decision to move the police department not on this property, to put it located on a different property, as well as the municipal courts potentially being located in this room in the future as well. So those components were all different. You still see that there's still the open green space that was located between the mixed use and the city buildings. But one of the big additions is item 13 there, which is a much larger park, open space, gathering space that could be used by the community for lots of different elements. It's located right there directly in the center, and it's right across the street from the previous green space. So it creates a very large, nice, big open space that could have some water features that fed into the wetlands, but also helps with that. So this is just a summarization of what are the changes from the original 2019 version. As I had mentioned, the police department was relocated where it's under construction now on Masters. The municipal court was assumed that it will be located in this building. The number of fields, while different, went to a multi-purpose type field as opposed to a separate softball, soccer, and baseball fields. They're now multi-purpose fields that could be used for any of those 3. There still are the 3 championship fields. We show a lot more retail in this current option, about 90,000 square feet more of retail than was in the previous options. I mentioned that we're maintaining the wetlands area that runs through the site. We also included more distributed parking to service those fields, as opposed to a more consolidated parking strategy that was in the original 2019 version. And then the large new recreational space is about 14 acres. So that, and on top of the green space that was across. So it's a very large, nice, big park space that could be used for concerts, for festivals, for all kinds of events, 4th of July. Could be a very nice space. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff, for that presentation. Manager Dan, what would you be looking for from council tonight? Are you looking for direction, inputs for any specific area, or just general feedback and thoughts about next steps?
Yeah, just general feedback to start with. So, this isn't a capital project that we have budgeted for right now, other than we have some funds set aside in the budget, I guess, for design, for architect and engineering design. Originally, the plan was to maybe focus on what we call it, the spline road, or the sort of the backbone road itself. Because that's kind of the key to everything. Regardless of what happens on either side of the road, we've got to get infrastructure to the facility. There's been discussions of maybe having a Manvel music festival, and this could be one idea that this sort of jump starts at, that where the amphitheaters are, if we're going to do something like this, maybe the first music fest is on the grounds of where the amphitheater will be someday. So really just want to get council's thoughts. We did establish in the planning session earlier this year that we don't want to sell this. Like, we want to do something with this. We don't get opportunities like this very often to be able to develop something for the city. And, the wetlands did change things a little bit, but council sort of embraced that. And actually, y'all said that you wanted some water features. So Jeff has been able to incorporate those. You said you wanted some areas that were, essentially free. So families can go out there, pull over, into the parking lot and go out there for free. And so how many acres did you say that was now, Jeff?
14 acres plus the acreage across the road. So it's about almost 20 acres.
So I think he tried real hard to connect all the dots of what we had and add what we heard from council in the we call them retreats, but the planning sessions. So is that still the will of council? And if so, we can flesh this out. I mean, if we're getting closer here to what council would like to see, then the next step is, we need to start talking about the overall sort of the phased approach, the budgetary numbers for each of those phases, and what does this look like? I think council had talked, Mayor, I know you had mentioned at one point, we need to bring Joe Morrow in and talk about what is our capacity, what is our borrowing capacity? Is this something that council would want to do as a certificate of obligation, or is it something that we'd want to start shooting for a general obligation bond, in a future election, like what Alvin ISD just did? So it was a long-winded answer, but yes, just looking for input. Does council want to move forward with this project?
All right, sounds good. So I'll start first here, council, and then we'll go down the line, and we'll go next to Councilman Hudson, because Councilman Hudson has been here. I think he actually has been involved since the very beginning, based off of his time on council, almost 9 years now. One of the things that I like about the design is more community access. The community initially was not necessarily opposed to seeing the 160 acres developed, but seeing the cost associated with the exclusivity for ball fields being roughly 3/4 of the acreage, that was something that turned off a lot of people. So there's definitely a need for ball fields in Manvel, but this makes it more community-centric. Parking is actually something that Councilman Hudson talked about from the very first design. How are you going to get people around this 160 acres? So seeing that parking is spread out to help support all of the different activities is a good design there. My thoughts are, then one of the things that we'll have to discuss is how do we get community stakeholders involved in this now, basically. We have our Parks and Recreation Board, which we can lean on them to get their feedback. But the first go around at doing something on these 160 acres, if we would have taken an approach similar to what the ISD did with their recent bond package about bringing community in, getting their feedback where they don't feel blindsided by what's being proposed, is huge. So going at a phased approach, maybe starting with the amphitheater and a library first, getting community feedback, working with Parks and Rec, figuring out what the cost would be, not necessarily how we might fund it, maybe some options, and then taking that to the community and saying, let us know what your thoughts are on this. We want your feedback now, so that way they feel invested in the success of the project. I would prefer, if we're going to issue debt for this, we do go the general obligation route, understanding the size and scope and scale of what that debt would be. That's not something that I would feel comfortable going the CO route personally. But those are options that we would present to the community as a part of that stakeholder and feedback gathering session. Those are just some of my quick thoughts. Councilman Hudson, any feedback, comments that you have?
Yeah, somewhat.
Councilman, could you unmute yourself? Thank you.
I think anything on there like income-bearing projects on there, like the ball fields, amphitheater, something that the city could reap in terms of benefits, not just have it out there. Plus the fact that anything that would bring the different subdivisions together. Right now it's just, you can't talk about Manvel. You can talk about it, but most people live in subdivisions now. That's the bulk of the population. I like to see that it would be more of a togetherness with all the different subdivisions, have something to be proud of. But right now, it's not to say we're not proud of it, but it's not one big project like this 160 acres. I think it would bring the communities together and put Manvel on the map. Because right now, it's on the map. We're growing, but to say that we don't have a so-called identity, just put it that way. I think any kind of projects that we're going to go from here with should be focused on how to bring the subdivisions together. That's, from what we talked about once upon a time. We have, like right now, we have the things on once a couple of Saturdays with the farmers market. That would be a bigger one than that, and would, because it's limited space right now. Then you have one thing we don't have here in Manvel. We don't even have a walking park right now. That would help in itself. So that's where I'm at. I mean, I'm open for anybody that has some thoughts about that. That's what we were talking about once upon a time. And this would be good. You're bringing up some very good points in terms of, like, the we're finished with the here, and we're finished with the police department. So I'm quite sure we can come up with something. But I'm open. But those are just some of my things that I would like to see done.
Absolutely. I love what you said there, Councilman, identity. As this 160 acres really allows us to define or showcase what that identity is, what we all feel can be visibly represented here, and I love that. Mayor Pro Tem?
Would you mind going back to the slide where you show what was removed and what was added, please? I can't seem to find it here on the screen. Okay, so I was only in for part of that, of your presentation. Of the retail opportunity, it says 90,000 additional square footage of retail space. How confident are we that we will have the right retail lined up for that, being that soon Presidio is going to want to develop, and that's a massive project there. But then also we have the other 30 acres that's on the agenda for later today, that proposing 16 acres of retail space. And then we have all the other land on the other side that potentially will sell for retail space. What makes me scared is if we boom too fast and we just bring in all the retail, it won't be self-sustaining. I think that I just have questions about that. Are we just allocating that just because it needs to be mixed use? Like, what's the strategy behind offering such a massive amount of retail opportunity?
So I think always the vision of this was a long-term phased project that could take 10 years or 20 years to develop. And as fast as you guys are developing and growing around, I think that would make sense. I told Dan that I was involved in the original Sugarland Town Center, helped them identify the location,
Great job, by the way.
help develop, the city hall location and then the street structure, and then all of the development happened by private money around it, but it was all planned. The master plan was set, and so there was always a plan, and it was, there was a path to get there. Certainly, to ask your question specifically about retail, there needs to be market studies done, right, to determine what is the need today and what is the ultimate need. And then if those, the retail components of this previously was thought to be a private component, right, that maybe a private developer would lease the land to them or some other arrangement as opposed to the city building it and being the landlord. I don't know if that's the vision today or not. But a lot of those things matter about how and what you want it to be. And so I think there's the traffic study has already been done. We did that back in 2019 based upon the previous use. So there's lots of studies that really need to help vet out and determine what the viability is. Because like you said, you want it to be successful. You want it to be able to grow with the community, and that, the components could grow, be added as the demand exists.
Okay. So if we're looking at this project and say, my biggest concern is it's been stalled, and we have this massive potential of land that's just sitting there because we have some type of vision for it. There's really not a set agenda or a set plan, like you said. So we all know about this. I've been sitting here for a year and a half, and it died, I guess, a year and a half ago. And so the first question would be, what would be the first thing we need to do to get some action moving? Would that be a retail study, or you already have a traffic study from 2019, but wouldn't we need a new one based on the new growth and 288 and all the things that are happening?
Absolutely. I think that you want to start to do some of the feasibility studies to determine how much office space could be supported at this location, both now and later. What is the appetite for some hotel, right? Will a hotel be successful here? There's lots of experts that can come in and help guide you on what is possible today and what is possible in your ultimate build out. And then you decide which of those you want to do sooner than later, and whether the city's going to do them, or whether you're going to bring in a private developer to take the risk on some of those developments.
Have we ever considered in the history of this project development what it would look like to possibly look at tourism or hotels that have like water parks in them where we would attract people to come here? Great Wolf Lodge just launched in over there, and I know that I heard that 288 was a contender for that, but obviously because of the density of population over there, that's why they landed there. What would it look like to add that into the study and say, what if we brought something like a Gaylord or a Marriott with a water park or something that would entice people to visit here and bring more revenue? That way, that could offset any type of money or investment that we would need for this massive. And then that would justify the retail, kind of like Town Center or the Woodlands, where you have the waterway, you have people coming, dining, they're not from here, and they're staying locally and enjoying it. Because I find it really, really hard to look at this and say, okay, we're going to have a sports complex, great. That's going to drive people to want to sleep here and spend here. And there's no way this is going to be a 5-year project. This is, like you said, 10 to 20 years. And I personally, and I'm not an expert in commercial real estate, but you can just look around the city and the ideas, the Woodlands, right?
Correct.
Sugarland Town Center and how they've developed over time. And even in those, some of the businesses fail.
Exactly.
They just do. They're not sustainable if you don't have a big chain. I really just think that we're at the point where we need more studies, and I think we need concrete information based on the growth that's coming. It's just we want something now, but I feel like there's too many answers, and I need to know what questions I need to be asking based on the growth and what the city wants. But I would love to have something like that. That would just be mine. I know that's not what we've talked about in the past, but I think it would look pretty that's a massive land space.
Absolutely.
But that 90,000 retail scares me.
Understand.
Just saying that. Oh, and also, one of the things that came to mind is, I believe Councilman Bonner mentioned a while back that having a community center for like seniors and families, we don't have a recreational center here either. What would it look like to put something like that there that's available to Brazoria County or to everybody?
That's what we assumed. I think number 6 is the city hall. I think somewhere in Civic Center. Yeah, so those are, we anticipated some of those could be uses at some point for the city that you would make sense to have a senior center, have a community center, those kind of uses that would all make sense to be here, that would drive people to come and shop. Well,
because if you look at where we are demographically, the nearest one is the natatorium inside Pearland, which is completely out of the way, or Lifetime in Siena, which is a 20-minute drive down Highway 6. There's nothing north, there's nothing south. So this area would be prime for that to capture all the new growth that's coming there. So those are some of the ideas that I think would be really phenomenal in that space. Thank you.
So the retail, where we're showing that, some of that could be office space as well. I think we're showing, if you use the density that we have and the height that we've assumed, about 180,000 square feet in total. of office/retail. Again, that could change, right? It depends on whether it's a medium-sized box. I don't think you want to put a big box there, but I think depending on, you might want to have some more specialty restaurants that might have other uses that would support the city's
One
requirements.
more question, if it's okay. What would it cost to run these studies again?
Those will all be done by consultants, so I can go out and help provide proposals for you to consider for those.
Okay.
So it might be an option to look at, okay, what are we more firm in, and can we move on? Because there's already been a lot of money that's been spent on studies. And so if there's opportunities to move on, let's say a library and an amphitheater and a place for those, we can start there because we have money for infrastructure. Some infrastructure is already going in, phase into that while we do ball fields or whatever, and then look at getting in some revenue that then funds those studies. Because 90,000 is a lot. I mean, that's a little bit smaller than what HEB is, I believe. I think HEB is like 110,000 square feet, so
Probably, yeah.
right about that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember Sugarland, back in the day, Sugarfest was on that site for years. They just had it there. That's what they used that whole site for about 10 years.
You could throw a pretty good party on 160 acres.
Yes.
That's for sure. All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We're coming tight on time, but we will have some additional conversations at our next meeting. I'd like to have a workshop where we can continue that. But Councilman Perry, any quick thoughts or comments?
Okay, yeah, I'll try to make mine concise, summarize. I think it's a great idea of developing this area as, say, was spoken before, a centerpiece or an anchor for our community in general. Right now, we don't truly have any meeting space. We don't have anything that brings the entirety of the community together. So I would hope that maybe as we're phasing it out and pricing it, we would look at what would be considered low-hanging fruit, the recreational green spaces, the wetlands, things that as we're developing the phases that we can, again, I'm calling it low-hanging fruit, that we can reach and bring the community in even as we're developing the other phases to it. And I think, when we look at 288, Highway 6, there's definitely the traffic, but we've got to develop a theme or a centerpiece that's going to draw that traffic, that's going to cause them to want to stop and go into the Manvel City Center or whatever we call it, whether it's some type of theme park or hotels. But I think that's what we need to keep in mind. What's going to be the draw to pull people in and maximize the use of that space. The retail, the office, I mean, there's no true office space available in the entirety of the city of Manvel. And as we're looking at the future and the growth, I think those are things that, and even that to some degree can be themed. So the key is maximizing the use, pulling in what we can feasibly start using right away, bring the community in, and then a theme that's going to bring in the surrounding community and the pass-through traffic. Because after we build it, when we've still got to maintain it. So there's going to have to be some ongoing revenue per square foot, per acreage, that's going to allow us to maintain it and keep it an attractive site and location for people to visit and use. That's it for now.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Opliger, any quick thoughts?
So real quickly, so it's birds. Birds is my word. With the wetlands, Keith and I went down to the Missouri County meeting a month or so ago, and there was a presentation about migratory birds. This area is huge. They fly by for free, right? And so that wetlands, right? And you could, if somehow we get all these moving parts pulled together, there's our economic driver, right? It could be part of that. And we have the 160 acres over here for Acre Lake. There's somewhere in there, there's got to be an opportunity, because that's what will bring people here. If you tie that migratory habitat, and I don't even know if it's possible, right? But from what I heard the other day, this area is prime for it, and we have all this land, so it's out there.
Thank you, Councilman. Wasn't sure where you were going with birds when you started with that. You know, there's a movement that birds aren't real, but we'll see. All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Lands, any quick comments from you?
Sure. I like the layout in general. Personally, I would like to see a couple of those ball fields removed and those lower fields moved up next to those other ball fields and have that southern area. I understand the concern of too much retail, but utilize that southern area for something else other than more. I like to see like 25% of it for the sports complex myself, and I think moving those two up there, where those two southern baseball fields, I don't know. That's just my personal take on it, and just have a little more space down there for other amenities. But overall, I like it.
Jeff, what's the current percentage that's utilized for ball fields and subsequent parking? Do you know?
Maybe just looking at it, I would say half.
About half, 50%. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Councilman Bonner?
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Lands. I think there's a little bit too much, especially in the multi-use. I think we could cut 2 or 3 of those out, because I don't see those as being revenue drivers more than uses for the community. And so maybe 4 of those is plenty for the uses for the community. The revenue drivers are going to be those ones down at the bottom. And I like the idea of getting those out of that area, maybe up to the top, and then having all that area. Some of the other stuff that I'm not seeing on here that I've heard a lot about is uses for like the skate park and some area for stuff like that I heard a lot of people talk about. I'm more interested, and I'm glad Councilman Sarmiento hit on it, about the community center, especially the senior part. I think we lack terribly in available facilities for the seniors here, and we're all getting older. So I'm interested in that. The retail doesn't worry me as much because I'm thinking 20 years down the line. I think at least dedicating that much retail space is something. We don't need to build it all right now. And we got to be smart about the businesses that we bring in. That's the bigger problem, I think, is bringing in the right businesses. We talked about some of this space being for the community as far as incubation spaces for businesses, where we could develop stuff like that. It'd be nice if once you had some shopping and you had the amphitheater and you had the stuff where you had an incubation space where we were teaching childcare development, and now people may have some space to drop their children off while they enjoy stuff out there. And I know there's some plans to go and look at some things on community centers, and I think we'll get better ideas of how we want to build that once the EOC comes back and they've told us what they found and what their recommendations are there. Overall, I think it's a much better plan than the very first ones I saw from 3 or 4 years ago. But I would like to probably see a little bit less on the multi-purpose fields. And then my other big deal is we've got to develop some time in all our busy schedules to where we can spend a couple of hours hashing this out and getting it going. 30 minutes here and 30 minutes there just ends up being a rehash of what we talked about the last time, and we never seem to move forward. Because I think our biggest deal now is our next step should be try and get an idea of where we think we are cost-wise, so we can start looking at the funding. Until we get that question answered, we're never going to be able to move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman.
Mayor, I have one quick question, if it's okay. Sorry. I'm sure this has already been asked, but it just came to mind. Is there any other site like this that you guys have done before, or anywhere in the United States that looks like this?
That includes the retail, the recreational
Sports and the
spaces?
recreational and the city and the retail, that whole mix.
I think I think this is unique that they have all these in one development, but there's lots of developments around the country that have them adjacent that were done by different users, that weren't all done by the city. But if I can share some with Dan so he can provide those.
And so, but the idea of using this massive space to throw all of this in here was something unique that previous council decided that they wanted? Is that how we landed on
The original
this?
idea came from the city to me and said, hey, we have this vision about trying to do all of these things. Can you show us what that might look like on a piece of paper? That's how this started.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Miss Elaine, any comments from you? Good luck. There you go. We're going to hold you to that. We'll hold you to that. So I think Councilman Bonner, to your point, I think Dan's going to bring up during his city manager update an opportunity for us to have that more in-depth discussion. I would like to have this for at a minimum the next workshop too. Let's leverage and utilize that time. Let's talk about, Jeff, if we could get possibly another schematics of some movement in those ball fields, what that would look like based off of that feedback. And then start talking about what would a phased approach look like. Because phased approach also we have to take into consideration infrastructure, roads, what makes most sense and what's cost effective, and what an overall pricing scheme would look like for this opportunity. And having that information allows us, Councilman Bonner, as you said, to have an educated discussion about what the next steps look like. All right, well, thank you, sir, for being here. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you.
Appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
Good evening.
Okay, so let's, council, let's take, because I know there's people in the lobby, we'll give them some time to funnel in. Let's take 5 minutes, be back here at 6:10, and then we'll begin the regular session. If there's anybody here that's looking to speak during the public comment portion, please make sure you fill out a paper, give it to Chief right there, and he'll make sure that it gets to us. So, thank you, everyone. All right, welcome back, everyone. We will call this regular session to order at 6:11 p.m. All council members are present, and I want to thank the team here at City Hall for the beautiful Christmas decorations. Thank you for that. So for our invocation tonight, we have a special guest that is leading us in this invocation, and it is the strength and conditioning coach for Manvel High School, Keith Caton, will be leading us in the prayer. So, Coach, if you want to come forward here to the front, bless us with some wisdom and say a prayer for us tonight. And he's repping the Oregon Ducks shirt. His son is a tight end for Oregon, got in at the tail end of this last game and got some playing time, which was exciting to see.
Yes, he did. It was freaking awesome. So, all right, bow your heads. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us here together today. Thank you for friends, family, and community. Bless our schools, our families, and our community as we finish out the next few weeks and prepare for Christmas. Help us to remember us what Christmas truly is about and make sure we put you first. Bless our council and our mayor as they make decisions that help our community and continue to bless us and bring joy to our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Coach. So we have a full house tonight. Everybody's here to speak about the dealership, huh? No, I'm joking. That's an inside joke. No. Okay, we have our inspirational reading next, which will be our Mayor Pro Tem, Crystal Sarmiento.
Happy to do so. All right. Y'all bear with me. I'm battling a bit of bronchitis, and so when I talk, I cough. So I'm going to do the best I can today. All right. So two of my favorite past presidents have been Abraham Lincoln and Dwight D. Eisenhower. I do a lot of leadership training with businesses, and I refer on both of their wisdom for a lot of the things that we teach and implement as part of success. And Abraham Lincoln said, "Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power." And so in the Bible says that, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control," in Galatians 5:22 through 23. Leadership is a test of character, and the fruits of the Spirit remind us that power must be wielded with integrity, with humility, and with self-control. Lincoln's insight echoes the Bible's teaching that power reveals the heart, and a leader must remain anchored in godly principles, demonstrating the character that inspires trust and respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Next, if you'll stand and join me in saying the pledges. First, to the U.S. flag, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. To the Texas flag, on the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. All right. So next, we're going to have council join me in the front. So we have a special recognition to give tonight. So for those of you that regularly attend our meetings, you're probably wondering why there's all these people here. And no, it's not for the car dealership discussion. It is for our 8th grade football team. Our Manvel Junior High boys had an amazing season this past season. It's important that we highlight the successes of our community, of our school students, and especially our athletes for their successes, not just on the field, but all of the work that they put in and their families put in off the field. And so we have a recognition tonight for the Manvel Junior High 8th grade boys who went undefeated in this regular season this past fall. The final game of the season, they played another undefeated team. So it was a battle of the undefeateds, and they ended up coming out on top. So we're very excited for them. We're excited to see all that they accomplished through their high school journeys, joining that Hoka-Hey culture at Manvel High School. So what I would love to do is we'll have the coaches come forward. I'd love to have one of the coaches say a few words about the team, and then we'll have all of the boys come forward, and we'll try to squeeze you guys in, and we'll take a group photo here and then give you this recognition. So I think we have 2 of the coaches that are here tonight. Oh, no, you got to come up too. Come on. I'm not going to let you get out of it. So if you just want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about this team and all that they accomplished this year.
Absolutely. Hello, I'm Coach Garcia, the boys athletic coordinator, and with me is Coach Blacklock, the head 8th grade football coach. And really, this season was an accumulation of 3 years. It's one thing I told him at the conclusion of the game. So we had two teams, both without a loss this year. And really, it started with these kids as sixth graders and then the seventh graders, and then working hard. I mean, we were one of the few teams to wake up at 5:45 a.m. as coaches and parents and get these kids to school by 6:30, and be on the practice field by 6:45 and just getting those reps in and day out. So really a credit to the parents, number one, for transporting your sons up to the field. Number two, the coaches making that commitment that this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to practice. And number three, just support from the community and from the entire administration, from the high school through Manvel Junior High as well. And big thing is, Coach Blacklock and Coach Townsend and Coach Ferry, the two other coaches that weren't able to make it today, instrumental in driving the practices and getting these guys ready each day and in each week for success. So once again, it had nothing to do with me. It's all about these kids, parents, and the coaching staff. Coach.
All right, just to piggyback off of what Coach Garcia said, I'm Coach Blacklock, 8th grade football coach. I'm proud of my boys, y'all. I mean, I'm extremely proud to see who they become, not only on the field but off the field. When you see these young men as they come up here, these aren't just athletes, but they are student athletes, and they have done everything that they need to do in the classroom to become who they are, and that's a credit not only to not us but their parents. And what their parents have done, their parents have instilled in them. If you talk to each or any one of them outside of these doors, you're going to get a yes, sir. You're going to get a no, sir, yes, ma'am, and a no, ma'am. And that's not anything that we do. It's something, it's been an extension of what their parents have done. And so we just extend it when they come into our program. And so we're blessed to be here. We're happy to be here. We continue to pour into them. Now we're moving into other sports. As Coach said, we saw them when they were young sixth graders. They were all knuckleheads. But we saw something in them way back then, and so we are proud of them. Parents, you guys should be proud. These young men fought, and when I tell you they fought, they were relentless. We had so many adversities. We lost players. We lost people to injuries. We had ACL tears. We had suspensions. We had all kind of things that happened, but they persevered, and they truly, truly demonstrated what we call resilience in our program. And so we are grateful for it, and I think they're all better for it because now they understand how to work when they come up against adversity in their life. So thank you all for acknowledging us today. We appreciate the acknowledgement, and I just want to make sure that all of my boys get the recognition that they deserve because it's them. I didn't play one down. I didn't throw any pass, and I didn't make any tackles. So credit to you, and I want to tell all of you while you're here in front of your parents, I love you guys, and I'm proud of you. Oh, man. The mayor is hazing me right now. This is a haze. All right. I want to call up. This is what I'll do. I want to call up my wide receivers. If you guys could come, stand in the front. If you play wide receiver DB, come stand right here. Yeah, we'll go by position groups. All right, we have Caleb Landry. We got Carter Maxson. Wave your hand. Jaden Basie. Christian Davis. C.J. Johnson. Come on over this side, Jarrell, so they can see you. This is Jarrell, one of the fastest men I've ever seen in my life. 4 something. All right, here we go. Give me all my defensive linemen. Yeah. We got Bryce Suasopo. We got Levi Moore, Carter. They coming fast. Steven Swayzer, Isaiah, Kayla Richards, and Ethan Battles. Come on, man. Why you O-line? Let's go, O-line. There we go. We got Peyton Borden, Cole Caden. Y'all raise y'all hand, man. Come on in here. All right, what we got? Backs next. Come on, running backs and linebackers. We got Taj Harris, Ronald Carter III. We got my man Gavin with the twist in his head. Come on, you linebacker. Halal Master. My man Younger. And our quarterback, Caleb Malone. Salgado should be a linebacker. All right. So these are all of our players that are here tonight, but we have other players that did not show up for whatever reason. They're studying. That's what we'll say. They're studying. They got exams coming up, so they're studying. But these are all of our players. Again, we want to tell you guys thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to the mayor.
So congratulations, guys. So what we're going to do now is we have this recognition to give you. You guys can display that in the school, and then we're going to have you all fill in here, try to squeeze in as tight as we can. You know, we all like each other here in Manvel. And so squeeze on in, and then we'll have council fill in around you guys, and then face forward that way. So, hey, guys, scoot back this way. Scoot back this way. All right, we're herding cats here. We're herding cats. All right, so back up, back up. Beep, beep, beep. All right, there we go. So Harry, David, Keith, if we can have you guys around on this side. Jerome, Crystal, Ed, if we can have you guys here on this side. All right, there we go. All right. All right. So next we have another special recognition tonight, and this is for our very own Elaine Graham. Elaine has been with the city from 2023, and she is retiring, 2003, not 2023. That'd be a very quick retirement, Elaine. Shorting you about 21 years. And so Elaine is retiring this month, and we wanted to take some time to celebrate Elaine. She has seen this city grow from, I think it was 4 or 5 city employees to what it is now. And so I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Dan Johnson, to talk a little bit about Elaine. And then Elaine, you are going to have to come up here and say a few words for us tonight. And then we have a special presentation for you, and then cupcakes and cookies for everybody to enjoy throughout the evening and as they make their way home. So Dan, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Mayor. Trying to keep my composure. I was just thinking about all the young men that were in here just now, and most of them, if not all of them, were not even born yet whenever Elaine started working for the city of Manvel. And in fact, probably all the people that were in here just now, that's probably what the population of Manvel looked like in 2003, right? And so what I'm trying to say is, we really haven't known a Manvel without Elaine. And it's going to be very different. It's one of those things where you're very excited for someone. It's a great transition in your life, but I don't think it's completely set in just yet. So I'm going to press on. I think it's beautiful that Mayor Pro Tem talked about the fruits of the Spirit tonight, because if you don't know, Elaine is a PK. She's a preacher's kid, and obviously her dad instilled the fruits of the Spirit into her, and to stay anywhere nowadays for 20 plus years, let alone in municipal government, there's no reason that you would do that unless you have a servant's heart. So I will miss. I personally will miss her as a friend. We've been through a lot together. I've known her since 2008. The mayor and I talk about iron sharpening iron a lot, and I think the same could be said for Elaine and I. We've held each other accountable in the best ways, and the like almost, I don't know, brother and sister, mom and son, just depending on whatever the occasion called for. I know a lot of the staff does refer to her as mom, as you'll see when you see her going away card. Sorry, that's just who you are, your mama. So we're going to miss you. I'm looking forward to hearing all about your new endeavors. It's going to be awesome, getting to be around your grandbabies even more, and getting to be around Crystal, your daughter. So we're excited for you, but I'm going to miss you.
Thank you, Dan. Elaine, if you could come forward and share some wisdom with us tonight.
So those that know me know I'm really not a speaker, but when I announced my retirement, I was asked to come up with 22 pieces of wisdom. So here we go. The number one, start with positivity. How you begin your day, how you begin each day sets the tone. Provide excellent customer service. Embrace change and grow. Be a team player. Come to work ready to take on the day despite what you may be going through. You are never alone. Your work team is part of your family. I truly believe that. If it hadn't been for my work family this year, I would not have made it. So many of you know my husband passed away in January, and my work family was my rock. So thank y'all. I appreciate it. Encourage instead of complain. Be punctual. Bring your best and let your results speak. Stay focused. Every accomplishment starts with the decision to try. Be humble. Love what you do. If you don't love what you do, you will not be successful. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Don't be afraid of hard work. Serve with a heart of generosity. Build trust with leaders and peers. Be willing to do anything asked of you. Celebrate small wins. Strive to improve every day. And these last two are a tribute to our present City Council. Embrace the values of our past, present, and future citizens. That's from our mission statement. And always remember the 7 core values and live by them every day. Those are my 22 pieces of wisdom.
Well, that's beautiful, Elaine. It's 22 points of wisdom for 22 years of experience. And
Exactly.
with your support, whenever we build the West Wing, I'd love to have that as a plaque in the entrance so that everybody that walks in sees Elaine's 22 points of wisdom. Now, Elaine, tonight we also have some people that have joined us for this evening to recognize you. We have former Councilman Larry Akery that's here.
Okay.
We have former Mayor Dolores Martin, as well as former Mayor Deborah Davison, who was able to join us tonight. And so you have people that have worked alongside you that wanted to come here and say thank you for your years of service.
Thank you.
So what I would love to do now, Chad, if you could grab the card there for us and bring that forward. Mayors, if both of you could come forward, Councilman Akery, if you can come forward as well. Council, we're going to take a photo with Elaine here, and then I'd love to have, if you're a city employee, you guys also come around, and we're all going to take a big group photo, okay? All right, so please make sure before you leave that you grab some cookies and cupcakes with you. My wife will not be happy if I take those home with me. So if you guys could help me out there, that would be appreciated. Next, we have public comments. We have a few people that have signed up here to speak tonight. So the protocol for this is I will call out your name. If you could come forward to the microphone, stay in the podium and state your name and address for the record. You then will have 3 minutes to speak, and we'll show on the monitors how much time that you have left in your speaking. So first tonight, we have Mr. Alfred Froberg with us. Please come forward, state your name. Oh, and your wife, and Mrs. Froberg. So if you could please just come forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. Thank you for being here.
Alfred and Nubia Froberg, Alvin, Texas, 3601 West Highway 6. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I know we did. So on Thanksgiving Day, we were sitting there eating lunch, council and mayor, and Nubia said, you know, we have so much to give thanks for. And she said, we have all these Christmas trees out in our field. She said, we should go to Manvel and tell city council that if they have any family or families that needs a tree, that we would be glad to donate 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever y'all have. We even put a stand on them, and all they have to do is set them in the house, put a little water on them. They'll last till January. So anyway, that's all we have to say, and hope y'all have a good day.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Froberg. So, beautiful gesture, and Dan, if we could just make note of that and see if there's anybody that we know that could use that, maybe reach out to local churches and see as well, that would be great. Next, we have Philip Riggs. Mr. Philip, if you could state your name and address for the record, you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you for being here, sir.
Well, with all the school stuff going on, I graduated here as a Manvel warrior in 1970, so I got a few on some of y'all. Anyway, my parents' land is down the street over the railroad tracks. There's 4 little old white houses all together. Back behind that is 7902 Russell. And because of the way the zoning is, I can't build a house there. It's because it's only 2 lots. And so I would like to ask for those 2 lots to be rezoned to where I can build a house there. And get a building permit or whatever. I was told if now I don't have this, I didn't get anything in writing or anything. I'm just going by what I was told, that I can't build a house there if I tear that one down. So I haven't torn it down yet, but anyway, I don't know all the right things to say. I just know that that's what I want. And so if y'all could help me out, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So right now for public comments, it's not an opportunity for us to engage in dialogue back and forth. But Joe's and Dan, if we're able to circle up with Mr. Russell here, that would be, or Mr. Briggs, I'm sorry, that would be much appreciated. So we'll have our team follow up with you and see what's going on there and provide you some guidance and direction.
Anybody else I need to provide phone numbers or anything to?
Do we have his contact information already, Dan?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so we don't have your phone number here. If you could write it down on a piece of paper and just provide it to our team, we'll make sure to have someone reach out to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And that was a great deal y'all did for that class looks a lot different than mine did. Way a lot different.
Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas. Next, we have Mr. Ty Watkin. Yes, thank you for being here.
Guys for having me.
If you could just state your name and address for the record, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Appreciate it. Good evening. Ty Watkins. I'm not from Manvel. I'm from a little small, big town called Fort Hood or Killeen. I'm just here. Oh, I'm sorry. Sedona, Flagstone Drive, 3325, Sedona Lakes. Been a resident in Manvel for, I want to say about 5 years, 5-6 years. Don't pardon my math if I'm wrong. But I'm here today just to kind of give some insight on kind of my opinion, or I guess feeling on the Toyota Keaton kind of expansion. I'm for it, right? So I took some notes if you guys don't mind, so pardon me making eye contact and looking down at the paper at the same time. And I'm going to kind of work from order of my priority. First, no more vacant space. We all know when you're driving down the street and you see a bunch of for sale signs, it kind of gives an eyesore, just a little bit. Two, it brings a lot of ally and partnership to the community, right? Local events, toy drives, charity functions, give backs for the residents. That's super important. Three, it signals growth and thrive. When you see something new, especially when it's appealing to the eye, it kind of shows that this place is growing, it's more desirable, creates, and that leads to property values, increasing property values. Most important, it creates jobs. When you sell cars, it creates mechanics because you need someone to fix it. When you create mechanics, you need someone to clean it, so it creates detail jobs. From there, it creates foot traffic. And you want to know what all those things have in common. Everybody gets hungry. That creates restaurants. When you have nice restaurants, more foot traffic, and more light to the city, I think that's super amazing, super awesome, and it allows all of us to kind of grow and come together for the community. I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for your comments. Merry Christmas. Next, we have Miss Lynch. Hello, ma'am. Thank you for being. I know. I was going to take a guess, but I was like, I don't want to. How do you say your first name?
Asia.
Asia. Okay.
Steely Dan song.
Awesome.
All right. I'm Asia Lynch of Manvel, Texas, and I'm going to be talking about new businesses signaling that our community is growing and thriving. It's exciting to see a new car dealership wanting to be here because it shows that our community is thriving and becoming a hub for business. Such investments don't happen by chance. They usually indicate that the area has potential and appeal. The presence of the dealership signals confidence in our neighborhood's ability to support and sustain a growing economy. This kind of commitment from a business often has a ripple effect, encouraging other companies to follow suit. I remember council spoke about impact fees being important, especially regarding paying for the water treatment plant recently. We might see improvement infrastructure such as better roads or utilities as businesses and local governments work together to support the growing area. Over time, this kind of growth leads to more opportunities for everyone, whether in terms of jobs, amenities, or community development. It's a strong indicator that we're moving in the right direction. But most importantly, with the new dealership, it creates employment opportunities for local residents, boosting the workforce and contributing to the economy's stability. And that's why I support it. Thank you.
What's your address for the record?
27 Rodeo Bend Drive.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Merry Christmas. Next, we have Pete Isnaga. Mr. Pete, I think you're familiar with what to do here, but if you could just state your name and address for the record, you have 3 minutes, sir.
First time, but
Your first time. Yeah, first time speaking, but I know you've been watching. Yes, sir.
Pete Snaga, Del Bello Lakes, right next to Kidding Toyota. And I've been a Manvel resident for 5 years now. Number one, I want to say, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't get your name, but you should let that man build a house in his land. Okay, it's his land, and you should cut out the red tape. And that's my opinion on that. But as far as the dealership, I'm for it. The one reason I moved to Manvel was because of the dealership. It brought opportunity to my family and I. And, it's bringing hundreds of jobs to the community. They just donated a brand new Camry today to a nurse. I don't know if any other business that is able to do that and, help the community as much, as the Kidding Toyota has. So, other than that, I think that's my opinion. I'm for it. I'm also for the businesses and the, slow growth of Manvel. I'm having to drive to other places to go to, high-end retail spaces, stores. And many of you ladies know that it's not hard. It's not easy to find in Manvel, or if anything at all. Correct. So so I think you have a unique opportunity also with the city center. You can attract. The World Cup is coming to Houston. We all know that. That's going to bring billions of dollars to Houston. Why not try to get some of that money to Manvel, right? So that's my opinion, and thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate that. I know Bobby our city attorney is very excited about the World Cup coming. We have no more participants that have signed up to speak tonight. We do have 2 that submitted emails to us that both voiced opposition to the dealership, and those will be submitted as a part of the official record. With that, we will now move on to, and Alyssa, do we have any other submitted comments? No, okay. Next, we will move on to our city manager update. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 updates tonight. The first one is, as we sort of talked about in the workshop, we want to have another planning session, kind of like the retreat that we had last year. Earlier this year, it was actually in March. And so if council is up for it, we'd like to do that a little bit earlier in the year, so to give us a little bit more breathing room before the budget time rolls around. So we'll be putting together some ideas to send out to you over the next couple of weeks. But just wanted to kind of plant the seed that we would like to have another planning session. Probably do it similar like we did this year. I think it was about a 5-hour chunk is what we set aside. We can do that, but I'll give you plenty of time so that you can try and arrange your schedules and if we can make it work for everybody. And then the other one was the other update that I had was to celebrate some of the numbers. So this is if my numbers are correct, I'm a numbers guy, as you know, this is our 31st meeting tonight for the calendar year since January 2nd. Our first meeting was on January 2nd, and this last meeting for the year is on December 2nd. And across those 31 meetings, council has entertained or voted on 171 different regular agenda items. And let's see, we've had 19 public hearings. You've had 24 workshops, 18 executive sessions. You've seen 30 ordinances on the first reading, 25 on a second reading, and then 15 that were just one reading ordinances. 44 resolutions for a total of 114 ordinances and resolutions for the year. And our average time has been 3 hours and 35 minutes, including workshops, so that's okay. The longest was in October. It was 6 hours and 21 minutes. The fastest was 9 minutes. Of course, that was an emergency meeting, but still, 9 minutes. The fastest regular meeting, let's see, I think that might have been Councilman Perry's meeting that he ran. Appreciate that, Ed. Come on back anytime. And of the 31 meetings times 7 council members, that's 217, I guess, possible opportunities for attendance. And we have had 202 out of 217, so we've only had 15 absences all year for, you guessed it, Mayor, a 93% attendance rate. So there's that 93 number again. So anyway, just some fun stuff to share with y'all. Y'all have accomplished a lot this year.
I love it. Thank you, Dan.
Yes,
great
it
support.
is. Very good.
Do we know the average number of ordinances and resolutions that are done in a given year?
No, but a challenge accepted, Mayor.
I'm curious if we set a record. We like to set records, so a little competitive. Awesome.
To anybody that really considers running, how many hours? 6-hour meetings.
Yes.
So if we had 30, I'm just doing some math here. So if we had, how many total meetings attended by each council member? What was that number?
31 total meetings. Yep.
So 31 times 7, that's 217.
Right.
Attendances, and then if we do that times 3 hours 35 minutes, that's 60, 90, 120, 165. So a total of 35,805 minutes have been spent by council specifically. And if you divide that by 60, that's each council member on average has spent 596 hours just in meetings alone. Oh yeah, we get paid the big bucks.
Thank you for your service.
Well, also staff. That's staff as well as
Very
the
true.
you that are attending these meetings, and you guys attend more than us because you guys are attending EDC meetings, PD&Z meetings, Parks and Recreation, ZBOA. So that's a lot that you guys do. Thank you. I love that, Dan. Awesome. All right, consent agenda, council. Any comments or questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion from Councilman Hudson. Do I have a second? We have a second from Councilman Bonner. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion to approve the consent agenda passes 7-0. We have no items removed from the consent agenda. We have the first item on the regular agenda, which is consideration and possible action to approve the second and final reading of Ordinance 2024-0-35. Staff, do you have any updates to provide us as it stands tonight?
No update from staff. The applicant is here. If you all have any questions of the applicant, if you would like a quick overview, this is a request to amend the Del Bello Lakes PUD to allow for a car dealership land use within 16 acres out of the total 30 acres that they have on the south side of Del Bello Boulevard. Staff did not recommend approval. Planning, Development, and Zoning Commission is not recommending approval. And at the last City Council meeting, the City Council voted to approve the first hearing of the ordinance with a few conditions. To be specific, just to make sure I don't get it wrong, a total of 8 conditions, and the conditions involved the type of land uses that would be allowed, landscape buffering, lighting-related requirements, and certain prohibition of mini storage land use.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jose. Would the applicant like to share anything tonight before we open it up to council comments and questions? Thank you for being here. I hope that you guys had a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council, and hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We were up here, I think, for the better part of 2 hours last time, so I did bring a bunch of the team back if there are any specific questions so that we'd be equipped to answer them. I do want to thank, in particular, the 2 mayors. I saw Mayor Davison leave. And recognize them for their previous help with us and working with us years and years ago. So I do want to recognize and thank them publicly for their help and assistance on the previous development that we did. I can go back over the package or presentation. or we can answer questions. I have with me Anson and Chris Wall from Keating again. However you'd like to handle it.
Yeah, I think we can open it up to comments and questions from council, and I think we're pretty well versed. We should be well versed by now.
I think so, but I got everybody here just in case. So
any comments or questions from council? Okay, well, I'll go first. So I after the last meeting, I thought about some of the comments that council that you guys had about the dealership, about preserving commercial space and opportunities for the commercial space. And so what I'd like to do is recommend for discussion some consideration of additional conditions. And what I'd like to do first for public discourse is just to review a little bit more in depth, highlight what was approved, and then some of these conditions that council that you might be willing to consider. I know it was a 5-2 vote at the last meeting, but there might be an opportunity if you would want to consider any of these additional ones. So of the conditions that were approved last time, Joe's did a good job at a high level covering them, but only vehicle sales, which primarily sells new cars. There needs to be a minimum 30-foot landscape buffer between the abutting residential lots and a minimum of 1 tree planted every 25 feet. And the trees must be an evergreen variety and a 3.5-inch caliper. A minimum 8-foot masonry wall shall be installed in the landscape buffer. A lot of things regarding outdoor lighting restrictions, with outdoor lighting being deflected, should be conforming to certain criteria and standards. The dealership must accommodate any vehicle transport deliveries on the property itself, and no mini storage allowed. So some additional considerations, council, is when we talk about primarily sells new cars, I think that's very ambiguous. What does primary mean? I think that would need to be defined, and I would propose 60%. When we talk about the additional 16 acres for commercial land, wanting to recruit the types of businesses that we want to see come to Manvel, not just what Pearland or League City or Sugar Land has, which are great businesses, but we want something different. I think we need to restrict that there be no RV, motorhome, motorcycle, ATV, UTV, commercial vehicles, or heavy equipment sales on the property. Not just restricting mini storage, but also restricting public storage, self-storage, boat storage, and RV storage. I think that there's an opportunity to do some additional changes to the allowable land use underneath commercial to remove manufacturing and production, keep it as retail sales and the types of businesses that would benefit the residents of Del Bello Lakes. No tax exempt businesses on the property, which would further eat away at our potential property tax and sales tax revenue. A few other items that there needs to be at least one, if not two, driveway connections to the feeder road on 288. We heard last time that there wasn't going to be one. The site plans show that there is one. I think we need to make that as a condition that there's one. The last thing that we want is on Del Bello Boulevard to have these heavy hauling trailers with cars trying to pull through commercial parking lots in order to get to the dealerships. I'd love to see, it was mentioned last time that Keating, which I love that they do this, they hire off-duty police officers to keep their business safe. Off-duty police officers cannot respond to active calls. They are off duty. And so it'd be great to have a station set up on this new property for a small office that our police station can use to, if they have to interview a witness, instead of the witness having to drive all the way over to this side of town. Could be a restroom for them to use, a place for them to respond to paperwork. You know, we could look at whatever the minimum square footage that Chief would recommend there. Here's some of the big ones for me, and I want to make sure that I'm clear. This is not, when we talk about this, we're focusing on land use. We cannot look at it whether or not it's a Keating expansion or not. Keating has been a great community partner with us, and I would love to see Keating be able to continue to prosper within Manvel. But this could be any business. This could be any car dealer, because we're not restricting it just specifically to Keating. I think one of the big ones, we have developers that stand before us all the time that tell us, council, I cannot do this deal unless the city gives me property tax and sales tax dollars. And quite frankly, we have seen so much of our potential revenue given away to these development agreements where we're hemorrhaging $3 million a year in potential earnings because of these development agreements. We're being asked to change an agreement, and I think we should put a condition that stipulates that on this 30 acres, isolated to this 30 acres, that the development agreement from the MUD must be changed before this land use change goes into effect. And that for that 30 acres, there be a reduction of the contribution, which right now it's 70% property tax, 50% sales tax. For this 30 acres, I think it needs to be reduced actually to 25% property tax and 10% sales tax. The reason why is when you do a car dealership, you are essentially eliminating on half of the land your potential sales tax revenue earning capabilities. Also, you're not able to realize the full effect of having it as retail commercial businesses because so much of it is going to be parking lot instead of buildings. So by isolating it to this 30 acres, then you do not implicate the MUD with the bonds that they've already issued, that they've already pledged potential rebate agreements from the city for the other land. Here's one that I thought was really interesting. I'd love to get council's comments on this. We've heard Mr. Mintzberg stand here and say that nobody wants to develop this land commercially, that 30 acres would be too much. Well, what if the city would consider buying this land? What if we put in as a condition that, okay, 16 acres is sold and changed for a dealership, but the remaining 16 acres be sold to the city and our EDC for the city to develop it commercially? I think we would very much have an interest to that, as it's the entrance to our 160 acres. It's the entrance to Valencia. Our EDC, and I think he's left already, our EDC president and our EDC, they've been talking a lot about how they want to buy land to be able to develop it, so that way we can use it to bring in the types of businesses that we want to come. We would have more of a direct say. A few others here for consideration. A yearly test driving plan must be submitted to the police department for approval with documentation that every sales rep has been trained and signs off on the trained routes. Sidewalks must be built along Del Bello Boulevard for the entire length of the property at a 12-foot width because that would match with the current sidewalk. No more than 2 dealership buildings and 1 car wash can go on the 16 acres. Councilman Opliger asked at the last meeting whether it's going to be 1 dealership, 2 dealerships. They didn't know at that time. Could it be potentially 3 dealerships? We don't know. That 16 acres is just going to be allowed use for dealerships. So let's put some parameters around that. And the last one, it would be, we are all aware of how the city had the potential in the past for off-site detention for the 160 acres. And that is no longer the case with some of the neighboring development. The Del Bello Lakes community currently has an excess of 26.86 acre feet of excess capacity. If we could put this as a condition that 25 acre feet of that needs to be dedicated to the city for future city facilities, that would help with any future projects that we're doing. So I know that's a lot. That's a lot that's there. These are things that I thought of for council's consideration. If it's going to go the way of a 5-2 vote, these might be items that council would want to consider as we move forward. So any comments, feedbacks, questions? I know that was a lot.
I'd like to respond first, if
Absolutely.
I may, Mayor. I have to say, we've requested many times to meet, and to hear these presented to us in mass is, I want to choose my words carefully here, but is surprising to say the least. Many of the things that you've outlined, as I think you know, kill the deal. And we can't, from this one sale, make up for the city's $3 million deficit, which is what I hear you saying. And so we're prepared to live with the things that were asked last time. We're prepared to work with council and with the city in any which way possible. But the things that you've outlined both kill this deal and kill any future development.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mintzberg. So I'm guessing for all of these conditions, they would be a no for you? The new conditions?
Again, I'm hearing them for the very first time. If I could just reflect on some of them, ingress and egress off of 288, not within our control. You want at least 1, if not 2. Absolutely, we'll work with you. We understand from feedback from city officials that that is the city's desire. Absolutely prepared to work with the city on getting that. But that is, of course, up to TxDOT as to what ultimately is provided. We will go forward with it. We will make the application. We will work with City of Manvel on getting that and getting those assurances. But if that's a condition, we don't control that in the same way that the City of Manvel doesn't control that. With regard to tax exempts, again, hearing this for the first time, I presume that means that you don't want a church on any part of the property of the retail. I have spoken to a couple of small churches that would like to have an acre and a half, or would like to be part of a larger facility. But again, these are things that we're hearing for the first time. With regard to changing the 70% to something in the 10 to 25%, absolute killer to this deal. And Mayor, you know that. That's why you're bringing it forward here at the last minute and hitting us with that. But that is a killer to the deal.
Would you be able to elaborate, Mr. Mintzberg, why that's a killer to the deal?
Sure, because we're able to finance this by selling bonds through the mud. And if we can't do that, then, those numbers don't work and we can't attract retail developers.
Correct. The entire mud, correct?
Yes.
So not just your...
Well, we of course, as you know, we sell each segment of bonds that gets sold in tranches. And those tranches reflect the individual development. So our ability to sell bonds off of the 30-acre development is dependent on what gets developed on this 30-acre parcel.
Correct. Yep. Very well familiar with bonds. Very
I know you
familiar
are.
with how you would be able to make back your money through the bonds as well. We can we could sit here and we could debate the minutia of bonds and financing, but I think we could have a conversation about that another time. Are there any other comments that you'd like to add, sir?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Any comments from council?
I have a question.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So these are suggestions, right? We all sat here literally for hours, and we've discussed this. We've had community conversations. The community is exhausted from hearing about this. I think that the intention of council is to see a diversity of businesses come. What we don't want is a bad deal for the city when it comes to that 70. I strongly feel that was a bad deal. Whoever approved that, to move things forward in the past, that was based on what you guys agreed to then. However, you guys heard my opinion the last council meeting. I'm not against any development that's going to help move our city forward, responsible, the right retail. I think this is a lot to digest, like on the fly. But I also just want to say that it's my understanding that what we're doing is we're approving the use of the land based on what we discussed last time to allow Keating to expand. And correct me if I'm wrong, is it one dealership or is there plans for multiple on that small space? Because I think that's kind of one of the questions that we have. I understood one.
So I think the easiest way to answer that is we don't have a manufacturer yet. Part of buying the property would be to approach a manufacturer to be able to get them to approve an add point in this area. I think the reason there are two dealerships shown on there was a potential concept for what could be. In other words, if we add a dealership and then we're able to increase more jobs and add more of an economic impact, then we would have the ability to do that. But again, there is no, we have to still get approval for one dealership from a manufacturer. So, there are two stores shown on there, obviously. Yes, that is correct. Right now, we would love to have permission for one. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay. So I understand. In looking at dealerships, sometimes, two brands come into one space. Typically, like GMC, right? Cadillac, Buick, GMC will come together, or Cadillac on one, or another one, or GMC. What is it? You get it. The four brands of General Motors. I think that the hesitance with that is that what the community didn't want was us to be the Ron Carter of Alvin, right? On 288 and have a bunch of. And I think that the fear is that, we approve one, then 20 are going to come. I think if we tread around that and just say, look, we just want the one. And the other question is, I understand that you can't really go out and say, this is what we're looking for with the brands, but it would also help if we had an idea of who are we courting for this? Is it a luxury brand? Like, y'all know, not that I want that, but because there's nothing else in the area, right? Just based on demographic. I think that's something that could bring a lot of clarity to council as well. What's out there? What are you guys courting? Something to that effect. And let me move on a little bit just so that I can have clarity for myself, and I'm sure this will stir up council to have questions as well. I don't think that the stipulations of no RV, motorhome, motorcycle, UTV, that's not a deal breaker for y'all, is it? No. Okay. Is public storage, mini storage, any type of storage facility a deal breaker? No. Okay. So then that's easy. No tax exempt mega churches, hospitals. So it says mega churches or hospitals. Obviously, we're saturated with, the hospital systems around here. I understand that more churches in the community are a benefit, period. That's my take. I love Jesus Christ. I'll say it. Public record, off record. I'm not against churches. However, I think that the use of this land, maybe it should be I don't know. I'm not trying to tell people how to run their business, but I've seen buildings where they house churches there and they use them for community centers during the week. But then again, it's a nonprofit, and so we don't generate anything from those. But as good Christians, we should allow those into our city. Just saying. Don't mess with Jesus. Okay. At least one driveway connection to the feeder road. I think that's a big one. I don't know that having it on Del Bello Road is is the best plan of action. I know that's between TxDOT, so
We just don't control that.
I get it. But from your conversations in the past, do you think this is something TxDOT would most likely approve based on traffic studies and dealerships? I've seen dealerships that force you to go down the side of the road, like Texas Direct Auto in the Meadows and Stafford. There's plenty of them based on the traffic and based on how close to on-ramps are. I get that. Just want to know, what would that look like?
I can speak to Keating Toyota where it's currently situated. We have had numerous discussions with TxDOT. They told us they would not give any permits to build a curb cut until the flyover was done, the overpass. So we haven't had any discussions on this tract, but Anson can confirm to you, we would love to have a curb cut off of 288. We feel like that just helps the flow, and we feel like that alleviates some of the concerns that were raised at the last meeting, traffic on Del Bello and car deliveries. So we feel like that alleviates those concerns or helps in that regard.
Okay, so that's not a deal breaker either, correct?
Not a deal breaker.
It's not a deal breaker in
apprehensive.
terms of our going forward. I can't make it a condition because I can't deliver TxDOT.
Exactly.
Similar to
I understand
the
that.
Keating
You can't
tract, I've had
condition somebody you don't
direct
control.
discussions with TxDOT. And
That's the question. Are you guys willing to have those conversations? And I think I heard him say yes.
Yes, we can make a condition. We will approach TxDOT for a curb cut. It's just in their court to approve it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
got it. I think
Yes.
we're all on the same page of that.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I love this idea, having like a satellite. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and HPD always had satellite offices in different areas, and specifically one on Bissonnet and Fondren and like southwest side of Houston. We would go get our shots there as kids. But I think that idea would bring safety, security, and our police station is so far back. I would like the discussion of it. I don't know how, if that has a deal, I don't think that we can write it in as a condition, but I think that's a great opportunity for discussion. Chief, yay, nay?
I was going to say, I've talked to Captain Day about it prior to this, and I've talked to Chris about it. I mean, I think it's definitely discussable.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard, to your point, it's hard to define what that looks like just right here on the back of it. But yes, we would be happy to have that discussion. And I think we can work something out.
So I don't know that we can actually write these in as conditions, but I do love that. That's a brilliant idea. It really, truly is. I think, Mayor, if you came up with that. And then, okay. Here's my question about the tax, the 70/30. That's the big one. And so if you're saying that that's a deal breaker, I understand that that's difficult to come last minute and us have a discussion. Like, honestly, that's kind of like, this is a discussion. This should have probably been on a workshop if we were going to change this. I'm a proponent for revisiting that because it is a bad deal for our city. And we're looking to grow the city. And so this just doesn't look favorable for us. It just doesn't. And I think that saying no does kind of kill the deal for, at least for me, because that means that we're not willing to negotiate or talk about what's in the best interest of all parties, the community, the businesses, and the city. That's important to have that conversation as well. So the other thing is, if we approve the land use, does this tax rate or this agreement have to be written into the land use, or can we come back to discuss this at a later date?
And then that's why even the last meeting I expressed concerns, because you are mixing in the development agreement with the land use and almost conditioning it on another exaction.
So we shouldn't be doing that. We should be approving the land use and then discussing the
Well, the PUD
development?
is limited to land use, and there's some negotiation, but usually the negotiation, like we talked about last meeting, is about the land use and limitations on the land use, not directly to.
Not the development agreement.
Yeah, and Joe's, I've never seen it where it would be mixed. I don't know if you've seen that either, so.
No, I'm completely in agreement with Bobby. So this is a ask for a land use. So any conditions, any requirements that are placed on the allowance should be
Specific to
land
using
use
the
based.
land, not the agreement based on the development.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. And
so-
and even like other items, like so from that list of 13 conditions, every condition that is associated with the land use, like Like, for example, the first one, at least 60% of new vehicles must be new. It is a land use related condition. That's okay. No restrictions on certain types of land uses that cannot go there. That works too. So in a way, you might want to ask the question, is the condition going to make this particular land use appropriate on that property from a land use perspective? If the answer is yes, then it works. I get that's the zoning take on it. Bobby, you can add if there's anything from the
Okay,
legal
so
perspective.
my question is then, what we're doing here is by discussing this, we're mixing in two different themes, and we really need to stick to the use of the land.
Yes,
Yes?
that would be my recommendation
Okay.
legally, is to stick to what's typically in the PUD. Mixing in
Okay.
finance concepts, I'm not even sure that we could do that.
So if we move forward with this PUD agreement as we discussed last meeting, that's just agreeing that, then can we come back with an agenda item to discuss the development agreement, or how would we do that? Because I think that's kind of what is the weird thing here.
Well, I mean, you can always ask to reopen the development agreement and amend it, but it would be something you'd have to negotiate and mutually agree to with the developer.
Okay, so you have way more experience than I do in this, so I'm asking a lot of questions, and I'm okay asking them because smart people ask questions. Okay, so if we move forward with an agreement on the PUD today, the current development agreement is what's in place. Could it be a condition that we'll approve it with saying we'll come back and negotiate that as well? Can that be a condition?
Well, I mean, saying that you will come back and negotiate, but it doesn't require them to actually agree to anything. I mean, you can do that even without putting it in the PUD. You can send an email to Mr. Mintzberg tomorrow saying, hey, we would like to renegotiate. Would you like to come meet with us?
So would the
There's no-
intelligent thing to do is to possibly table the PUD agreement and come back and have a workshop session or an executive session and discuss that? Because I feel like he's saying there's no deal there. We want to see the land use based on their presentation last meeting, but it's kind of like the impasse, right? Or no? Am I wrong?
Well, I think the key is trying to tie them together somehow and make one dependent on the other, I think is not the right way to do that. I think the PUD, like Joe said, is land use and limitations on land use, or things that can make this land use work where ordinarily it wouldn't.
Okay.
Like before we started the process, you might not have voted for this, but with some of these conditions that limit the land use with the walls and the ingress, egress, that sort of thing, then that you would be able to vote for the land use. But it's all tied to the land use. I think trying to mix it in with some sort of financial exaction or renegotiation is where I think that's tying those two together. I think it's not what we're supposed to do.
Got
If
it.
I might just respond
Sure.
to one of the things. So what we were quickly trying to do, and I heard you that, you want to see that we've got some flexibility and some willingness to negotiate. I've said what we can't do. I mean, what the mayor outlined, and he knows this, it's a deal killer. Plain and simple. What we could do in 73 seconds of trying to work on it is that on the 16-acre for the dealership, we would agree to a 50-50 split to modify that. And I think, I'm just offering that up to council as a sign of good faith, that we are here in good faith. We are trying to work with you. We have tried to listen carefully to all the things that have been said time and time again. So that is,
thank you.
an effort to, we're
And I
not rigid.
appreciate that because it does show effort and
Right.
willingness.
And
And it
that's
shows
with-
that you guys are not saying it's a no, we're open to that.
Thank you.
So if that's on the table, then are we thinking that that's better if we just focus on the dealership part and then we come back and worry about the rest later and we talk about that tonight?
Well, I think, Mayor Pro Tem, we can't, the financial considerations have to be handled separately.
Okay.
So tonight, we would be approving an amendment to the PUD, and then in good faith from both parties, come back to the negotiating table. At that point, you lose leverage because you've already approved the PUD, but Mr. Mintzberg has said here that he'd be willing to talk about that 16 acres. And if that's something council would be willing to consider, doing a 50-50, maybe there's another option that's there. That would just have to be a negotiation that happens separately outside of the meeting and the vote for tonight. We can't tie any, because like you said, Mayor Pro Tem, these were just items just to consider. By no means does council have to go with any of them. Where this came from and why this didn't come up before now was, what was council saying at the last meeting, listening to my colleagues here, and what might be some items to consider. Yes, some of them are extreme. But we've shown that we are willing to fight for the best interest of our community. Let's have this as a starting point and a dialogue to see what might work best. Where do we want to draw a line in the sand? Where do they draw a line in the sand? Where can we find ways to meet in the middle that's there? So, like, for example, the land sale of the other 16 acres to the city, I still think that's a great idea, but you can't tie that as a condition into this because it's monetary. The development agreement, changing the percentages can't be tied into this as a condition, but some of those other land use items, Joe's, can be tied into. I think, Councilman Bonner, you might have had something.
Well, my only issue, I love the point where you come back and say, I'm willing to talk.
Yes, sir.
I hated the initial no, but I also understand that was a slap in the air of this is what I want. We've never talked about that kind of number before. I get it. My only issue with the 50-50 is we're only dealing with the dealership, which has the least effect on tax increase because we're only making money off of work that you do, not car sales. So the bigger value to the city is the other 16 acres is going to be commercial. And part of my whole picture the last 2 weeks since we had the first talks was going back and looking at some of the conversations back when Councilman Hudson and his group came up with this initial agreement. The whole original plan was only one car dealership would ever go there, and that would leave 65% of that property for commercial value. And that was going to be at this 70-25. Well, now we're down to only 30% or so of it. We're just diluting and diluting and diluting the city's money-making ability. And so I could possibly feel better about it if you would consider the 50-50 on the whole 30.
So it's a little bit of a catch-22 situation. So I can't stand here today and just like that.
I understand.
I'm pretty good with numbers, but I'm not so good that I can do that.
I know, everybody needs a little bit of time.
But if I may, the catch-22 is, to the extent that gets reduced, that will affect our ability to sell the retail sites more rapidly. And to that, again, even though Mayor said I didn't need to, I brought the folks that can speak to that. There is interest there. And, my goal, and I believe the city's desire, is that we would move forward on that as expeditiously as possible. And, we're going to do that as quickly as we can put in the infrastructure. We need the infrastructure in order to do that.
Well, I don't want you to think that, I know you made the comment that you've got to make up the whole $3 million. That's not, you've got to start being the first one that may have to make up on the money. I think you're going to see future developments any place in Manvel. You're never going to see, I hope, another 70-25 or 90-10 or any of these pie-in-the-sky deals that were done 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I understand why they came in here. We had to get the thing started. But we should be at the point now to where we don't have to beg people to come here. They come here because of other things, the town growing and the people that are here, and hopefully the way that we're working with developers. And that's why I appreciated the willingness to discuss it, because I think that's only where better deals can come from is the open discussion. So I would like you to think about the 50-50 being on the whole 30. And I don't know how you give an answer tonight. I know that's impossible.
I can,
I guess your comment that you would be willing to discuss it, I would just like that promise that you would be willing to discuss it still, and that it's just not a dead deal altogether, too.
It's not a dead deal. I'm willing to discuss it. I think, I had here, the Keating representative that helped me get there very quickly. of his commitment to help out on the going from 70 to 50.
I agree.
I'm willing to be here, and I'm willing to workshop it. We need some cooperation and willingness from city officials to meet with us to talk about those things.
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to reiterate, so the terms of the agreement right now, the 70 and 50 that we're talking about, so the 70% right now is of the ad valorem taxes, so the sales tax is already at 50-50 right now. So I just wanted to say that out loud again in case we weren't transposing those, so to speak. That help?
Sounds good. So Councilman Bonner, based off of your comments and questions there, and it seems like there's a willingness to have a discussion, would you like to see us move forward with approving a PUD with conditions? Or are you wanting us to
I'd like to see us
have that discussion, or where are you at?
I'd like to see us move forward with approving the PUD with the original 7 or 8 conditions that we discussed last time, and the ability to discuss the future MUD agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments or questions from council? Councilman Perry?
Yes. So when we look at this, and of course I was part of the group that approved it at the previous council meeting. So when we look at this, so there was originally an agreement that there would just be the one dealership on the north side. Residents are still, some are in favor of it, but there's still a good number of the residents who are not. And their concerns were, they bought into homes, invested in homes with a thought in mind that they were only going to deal with that dealership on the north side. We've got the, as Councilman Bonner brought up, because we're not going to have that full area in retail, the revenue from the city is going to be reduced because of the dealership. In the plan, you show, just as a perspective plan, 2 dealerships. You told us, you can't guarantee what it is. The request is just out there. Now, again, this has nothing to do with Keating. Keating has been a great community partner. But my concern is that is the entrance to our city center. There's a vision and there's a concept in mind. We want to be careful. We approve this. A few years down the line, do you come back and request another adjustment? And before it's all said and done, that area is completely dotted with dealerships. And I know that's kind of an exaggeration. But I understand where the residents are concerned with, this is the entrance to our city center. This is also the entrance to their neighborhood that they've invested in. How can we be certain that what we do on tonight, or what we approve as far as a land use, won't be impacted again in the future? That, there's not going to be a request to come back and make further adjustments based upon whatever parameters might arise.
I think y'all have been very clear. I'm not sure how to.
But I think the previous council was clear when they made the original deal. So that's where my concerns arise.
Look, I've spent, since that time, now 4 to 5 years, we've marketed this tract. And the people that marketed it are here tonight. And they're here in support of this dealership, notwithstanding they don't get a fee out of this transaction because I made a deal directly with Chris and with Keating. The next highest and best use is for the retail along Del Bello. And we've got several interested users, and I have Mr. Scoville, the Chief Operating Officer of Reed King, here to talk about that. If he would be repeating what you heard last time, but to talk about that. I think that the highest and best use of the remaining acreage is something that I saw in Kansas City. I was there about 6 or 8 weeks ago and went through a development called Zona Rosa, which is a mixed-use development, and I had this up here last time, it's not talking about Zona Rosa, but this bottom piece is placemaking, the secret of success, which I think is the highest and best use for the remaining acreage, which is a mixed-use development of gyms, small office buildings, small medical, multiple use with a high pedestrian usage of that property. And I believe I said to y'all last time, that is not going to happen tomorrow. So I don't want to leave under any false impressions. I think the retail use will be taken down in the next 18 months to 5 years. The development that would require a number of additional rooftops, and that is probably a 7 to 10 years. But y'all know that development. You've driven as much as I have from 288 out to 6 through the neighborhoods. Those rooftops are coming. And that'll be the highest and best use there.
Mr. Mintzberg, quick question. Does Zona Rosa have any car dealerships within their development?
No.
Okay. Because I'm pulling it up right here, so because you use that as an example, I was just curious if you did or didn't. Okay, thank you.
It's a fully self-contained development.
Okay.
And again, and I'm not comparing us to any other site, but again, that's a consideration. Our PD&Z, they didn't approve it. Our staff didn't recommend approval. We have residents that are concerned based upon what their impression of what they would have for their long-term investment in their homes. And so as a council, we're stepping out there, considering making an adjustment that pretty much is against the will of a number of those that have weighed in on it. I just want to feel comfortable that in making this decision, it's going to be to the best benefit of the city of Manvel, of those residents that are most directly impacted. And so I hear what you're saying. You're saying that it's going to take time, but it would make me feel more warm and fuzzy if there was, even with these requirements that we put in, if there were some things as regards to aesthetics. Again, that's going to be the site that you see when you pass 288, when you come into the city center. So we want to make sure that it represents what our vision is.
I'd like to make you feel warm and fuzzy. I'm just not exactly sure how to do that other than, the dealership will will provide the ability for us to put in the infrastructure to develop the retail. It's in our own selfish best interest that retail looks good along there and contributes to the way the entire development looks.
Thank you, Councilman Perry. Mayor Pro Tem Sarmiento, just so you know, Zona Rosa has pickleball courts. That's your thing. I know.
I want to see families out playing.
Before,
I have a question real quick.
Well, I want to go to Councilman Opliger. He's been waiting. Then we'll go Mayor Pro Tem, and then back
Okay.
to me, and then we'll go to Joe's.
Perfect.
So am I maybe misunderstanding this, but in the PUD, it was Keating that asked for not to have a car dealership across the street. Is that right? When the PUD was created, it was Keating that asked not to have a competitor across the street?
No, originally there were not going to be any car dealerships that the council at the time was in favor of, but Mr. Mintzberg came back and forth and there was some negotiation, and as a compromise, council settled on limiting it just to north of Del Bella Boulevard.
Okay, all right, well then, okay, so, and then my other thoughts on this, and I kind of stand on this, what I heard, they were going to bring jobs to our community, right? It's one business. It's Keating that wants to expand their business, right? It may have a different colored hat, but it's still Keating. And it's the owner of this. I guess in time, Keating could sell that, right? But they'll be making a substantial investment, and it'll be here for a few years before they opt to sell it. So even walls fall down after time. So that's why I thought that is so they're going to bring jobs. It's the same company that wants to expand their business, and what we've seen so far from Keating is good business partner for the community, and that's kind of why I voted yes, and I still kind of favor that. I try to stay as close to the book as possible for Manvel. There's a lot of folks in Manvel that have spent a lot of time developing this look of what we want to, what our community wants to look like. And, sometimes the developers come in and they tell us, oh, we're going to build a sit-down restaurant. It's going to look like this. And then we hear it's a McDonald's. So they threw the curveball at us. I just hope that the curveball's not getting thrown at us a little later down the road. All right?
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
I kind of forgot where cough medicine.
Is that bronchitis?
Come back. I'm literally low on oxygen, so y'all forgive me if I say mean things.
Can we go back to the pickleball courts?
Get her breathing
No.
more heavy.
I'm so sorry. No, come back to me.
All right, sounds
Let me
good.
read my notes
A
here.
question that I had for Joe's, talking about land use. I know we have the 8 conditions. I would heavily suggest council consider the additional restrictions on land use regarding storage and some of like the heavy equipment sales. Joe's, from a land use purpose, could we put in the condition of the provision of the 25 acre feet that's going to be excess? Is that something that is land use based that we could put into this?
It's not, I don't feel it's directly related to the ask, and I don't feel it'll be more like Bobby said, an exaction that we're asking of the request, which may not be appropriate.
Okay. So that could be something that's up for discussion and negotiation and dialogue and collaboration. So where that request comes from is the city.
We've already said we're agreeable to a 30-foot setback.
What I'm talking about is, so DeBello Lakes has 26.8 feet of detention that's going to be available within DeBello Lakes once this whole 30 acres is going to be developed. What we're saying is because there's going to be 26.8 acre feet of excess capacity, could that be dedicated to the city to leverage for what we're going to build on our 160 acres? Because once this 30 acres is built out, there's no more additional need of that 26.8 acres. Does that sound correct? You tracking with me?
No, sir.
Okay.
If you're asking me, can I contribute 16 acres to the city, the answer is no.
No. I don't think you're tracking with me. Our city engineer might be able to explain it a little bit better.
If you recall at PD&Z, one of the questions was, in fact, Kyle Maraskin is here. That was the question that kept coming up was, what about the detention? Where's the detention for these new parcels going to go? And Michael Rusk had provided, no, actually, this was already contemplated as part of the overall DeBello Lakes. And the exhibit that he provided showed that not only is it contemplated, but there's actually excess capacity, like the mayor said, about 26.8 acre feet of excess detention capacity is what the exhibit showed. So if y'all don't need it, the city does for our city center, for our 150 acres that's literally adjacent to you. 160 acres, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you guys have some mysterious plan.
I don't want to give you just.
I'm no engineer.
Right. I don't want to give you just a facile sure. The answer is, again, we're here to work with the city. Okay. So if we look at the full needs and our engineer who does work, is your engineer, LJA, and if we determine, that there's excess, be happy to give it to you.
Great.
I mean, again, we would see that as the spirit of working cooperatively and collaboratively with the city of Manvel. So if we have excess, sure.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that, Joes. Now, I know, Joes, you had a comment?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to quickly clarify 2 things. One was about the number of dealership issue. That wasn't discussed at the PD&Z or previously, primarily because we do have site development requirements as well. So the primary 2 things that was looked upon is the land use going to have detrimental impact at this location. So based on the parking, the landscaping requirement, the setback requirements, you can either have one big dealership or multiple smaller dealership. So it's all a factor of square footage and all of that. So it wasn't a huge concern as part of staff's analysis, number one. Since it came up, I just wanted to clarify staff's perspective on that. Number two, if you look at the data sheet, there's a statement from staff saying that since the location is along 288, assuming that there's going to be an access from the feeder, no detrimental impact is anticipated from a traffic perspective. Last meeting, we came to know that access is something that may or may not happen. And the condition that you proposed about having that access, Mr. Minzberg is right. I mean, it's beyond their control, but I think staff would like to bring it to your attention that having that access and not having that access is not going to be the same traffic impact-wise, and I think the difference should be the developer's responsibility based on an approved traffic impact analysis. So I would like to propose that condition.
We can't go forward on that. And you know that.
And you're recommending, Joe, is proposing the condition of there being the driveway connection or of a traffic impact analysis study being conducted if the access
is not, if the access is not approved by TxDOT, a traffic impact analysis be done, which is approved by the city engineer, to see what impact happens because of not having that access and whatever improvement needs to be made on Del Bello Lakes Boulevard or within the development that is the traffic impact analysis would propose, that be addressed. Does that make sense?
No.
So I'll try to simplify it here. Staff's analysis, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, staff's analysis up to this point has been there will be the driveway access off of 288 because every site plan that we've had has shown that access. Now, if that access is not going to be there, that changes traffic patterns, where the traffic patterns will then all have to come onto Del Bello and into that singular entrance. Understanding the impacts that would have of now not having 2 points of access, but one, what sort of traffic impact would that have to Del Bello? We don't know because it hasn't been analyzed by staff and there's been no submitted traffic impact analysis. What you're saying is because there might need to be changes to the layout of Del Bello Boulevard because of the traffic, because you're going to have additional 18-wheelers coming through or heavy commercial trucks, you're saying let's just require that there be that study submitted before construction that's approved by the city engineer to ensure that there's no negative impacts. And if there are, how can that be mitigated in the site plan or in Del Bello Boulevard?
Correct.
Okay, I think I got it. All right. Does that make sense, Mayor Pro Tem?
That makes sense. My question would be, but TxDOT still has to be the ones to approve that, right? So if we're saying they need an impact study.
If TxDOT turns them down.
If TxDOT turns them down, which, do we think they would? Why would they? That wouldn't make sense to turn them down.
We hope they don't. So, I mean, I'll just go on the record of saying that. We would love a curb cut off of 288. Anson, do you agree?
For both, yes.
We're waiting to build one in the Keating Toyota off 288 as soon as TxDOT will allow us. So I feel extremely confident saying we would go and apply for that and push that as far as we could.
Discussions where they talked about the
Councilman, can you mute?
When you had your discussions and they talked about they wouldn't talk to you until the overpass was complete, that would seem to make me feel like at least they're willing to talk now that the overpass, and that seems to be the major hangup anyway, is most of the traffic will now be up on the freeway and not down on the curb.
I agree with you, Councilman. I think based on previous discussions, I think they'll be open to it there. Just, yep.
That doesn't mean they're going to move fast.
No.
They are at TxDOT.
You've met them at TxDOT.
Yes.
But the other thing that will help us enormously, and I can't overstate this, is it's one thing for us to go to TxDOT. It's another thing for us to go to TxDOT side by side, or frankly, half a step back of the city of Manvel. If the city goes and says, we really want this, that is very different than the three of us going there. That's just a day and night difference if the city gets behind it, the impact that it'll make on TxDOT.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to sign a letter from my office, or we could have one official one from the city with the support of council.
That will.
I agree.
That will help. That will aid.
If we move forward, I think that it needs to start being a part of the next. What do y'all do? Quarterly or monthly meetings with them? That needs to be brought up.
Joe said something, and then Mayor Pro Tem remembered her question, so we'll go back to her.
Yeah, I was just saying that since Mr. Mintzberg's response was that the TxDOT access from the feeder is not within city's control, not within the applicant's control, I just wanted to bring to your attention that if there is a traffic-related impact resulting from, for whatever reason, the access not happening, it should be addressed as part of the condition.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So am I hearing this correctly, that Del Bello Lane will also be a route to get to the 160 acre? Okay, so if that's the case, then the people who bought there, did they know that was going to be a high traffic lane to get people to this convention center, to all the potential things that we're saying? And so if we're using the argument that it's going to bring traffic to the front of their neighborhood and not through the neighborhood, but yet we have plans for developing something massive with 90,000 square feet of retail back there, then that kind of 160 acres. I'm talking about the retail space, which is going to drive foot traffic every day. That lane is going to become very, very heavy. And so I just want to make sure that we remember that. So also, we're talking about the aesthetics, and I remember the rendering of what it would look like. And so that would capture a lot of that traffic as well. And so it should complement what we're going to have going there as well, because that whole area is going to be fully developed. And how many more houses are going to go back there? And so people buy homes around a lot of those things everywhere. Sienna, I mean, you look at Sienna and Meridiana, they've got a lot of retail peppered into the neighborhood. And so I'm trying to look at this in the long term. We're really stuck on this, but there's going to be a lot of traffic going there. Are we going to have these type of restrictions when that happens?
Yeah, we had a resident of Del Bello Lakes shaking their head out in the audience saying no. And I think we all know, working with realtors, that realtors sometimes will tell you things in order to buy a home
Exactly.
that might not come to fruition.
Yeah, I think we can't hang our heads on what people said they were sold, because realtors will say what they can to get you to close a deal. They're salespeople. So I just wanted to make that note, because that to me, it goes hand in hand. We have to look at this in the long term.
Crystal, one thing that's different is that it is on our major thoroughfare plan and has been forever. So they're bought knowing there was going to be a major 4 or 6 lane, whatever thoroughfare that's going to go right by them.
And you bought by the freeway.
Yes. So they bought with that in mind already. So.
Okay, thank you.
You have a comments there, Councilman?
Yes, I do.
All right. So after Councilman Lands, I think, guys, we'll call the question, see if there's any amendment to the conditions we want to make, and then take a vote. Go ahead.
So I would like to say that if for some reason we cannot do a curb cut off the 288 feeder, then I think the next idea would be to, as we exit onto Del Bello, there is an entrance into the dealership right off of Del Bello, not down there in the retail area. So you do another entrance off of Del Bello into the auto dealership. That'll separate the 18-wheelers bringing cars in from people coming in to eat Mexican food. I mean, it'll be a separate entrance. You follow me?
Councilman Lands and his Mexican food. That's what he's hooked on, guys. If you bring a Mexican food restaurant there.
Yeah, I am the Mexican food guru. So
what you're saying, Councilman Lands, is you're saying, so right now there's one entrance off of Del Bello. You're
further
saying.
down. Yep.
Further down.
I don't think there's enough, Councilmember, I don't think there's enough space there for 2 entries. We're confined by City of Manvel regulations and other engineering regulations as to how many entry and exits we can have in a certain distance. Again, I'm not an engineer on this, but I know that there's not enough from where you make the curve on the radius that you could get 2 access points.
I think that's something that could be looked at.
As a part of the TIA.
Happy to look at it, but I don't want to mislead.
'Cause I definitely do not want 18-wheelers coming through 6 or 7 retail areas and jumping over curbs, and there's cars parked there. No way. That, to me, is a deal breaker. That's no way. And I understand what you're saying about the percentages. You know, you've worked your numbers, and there's absolutely nothing that can be done there. I think that there's seems to me there could be something done there. And I know that you have to hold your financial cards close to your chest. You can't let us know exactly your pluses and your minuses and stuff, but I would love to see, if possible, why coming off the 70% is a deal breaker. I mean, just show me the
Councilman,
facts.
we're prepared to play it open hand.
You know,
We're
so that's, I would
not
just
asking-
like to see.
No, sir, we're not.
So
We're prepared to show all of it. A lot of it is going to depend on the ultimate cost of the infrastructure. We have a preliminary number. That number could go up 15%, it could go down 18%. We just don't know that yet until we lay out that plan and we get hard bids in. But at that point, we're prepared to play that open book with the city.
I appreciate that.
And I feel, hope I demonstrated some good faith by quickly, saying we'd go from 70-30 to 50-50. I just can't, I know that what the mayor proposed is a deal killer. Absolutely. But we're prepared to show, every penny of what our expenditures would be and every penny of what the reimbursements would look like.
Well, I understand you got to make a dollar.
Sir.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I'll stipulate that right now. We'll play it open book across the board.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So I think, Mr. Mintzberg, there were some conditions that you said wouldn't it be a deal killer for you guys, which was restricting, RV, motorhome, motorcycle, et cetera, the public storage, self-storage item, doing a traffic impact analysis if the driveway is not approved, of course, the driveway being the primary. And I think that was the...
Hang on.
I just wondered, are we just getting the analysis done? That's where I didn't know that's where I was a little bit confused. Like, we do the analysis and then we just hand it over to the city, or what?
Approval from the city engineer. You do the analysis. The analysis would include what the impacts are and how to mitigate those impacts to maintain a certain level of service, and then it needs to be approved by the city engineer. That's the standard approach. Dan, if you would like to add to it.
But I do want to, I want to be sure here that we're talking about the same thing. There are several thousand homes contemplated to be built back there. We can't.
How do I?
They're up for a plan that's already.
Right. So there's several thousand homes that are planning to be built. There's a city of Manvel, I'm hearing, I understood, for a long time, the city bought 100+ acres there that the city wants to develop. I can't solve all those issues, and we wouldn't do a TIA.
I think his impact's only what's current.
Correct. So
Okay,
we have,
thank you,
we have a
sir.
lot of,
Current
Thank you.
So we have a lot of,
impact be.
Thank you.
Kind of share with you the approach for this. So we have a lot of businesses that will come in that are on major thoroughfares that are required as a part of their approvals for permits and constructions to submit a traffic impact analysis. Sometimes it's as simple as having an engineer take a look at it, submit a letter to the city saying there's not going to be impact, it's minimal. We had a daycare that had to do that, because now cars are being drawn and vehicles are being drawn onto a road that they might not have otherwise gone to if either that business wasn't there, or if in your situation there's a second access point off of 288. And so staff would be able to work with you guys on what that process would look like to get the traffic impact analysis. It's not uncommon for the industry, and it's something that if you eliminate the second point, that changes expected traffic flow, because now all traffic dumps onto Del Bella Boulevard for your business. What's the impact going to be to that road based off of that factor changing? So it's not uncommon in the industry there, and with city regulations as well, Joe's, if I'm not mistaken.
And it would have been one of the requirements if initial discussion said that an access is not being considered. So that would have been something that would have been part of this process, where at least an abbreviated form of a traffic impact analysis was done to show that, okay, the impact is minimal and whatever impact can be addressed with simple site adjustments and things of that sort.
Okay.
So is that what he's proposing we add as a condition?
And Joe's, if I heard you correct, you said you would have proposed that initially, but the site plan showed that access. And so because that access was there was no concerns from staff about it.
What I was saying is, that wasn't even discussed, that wasn't even on the horizon, because we were going by what information was provided. And just to point out, staff's recommendation was not approving the land use.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could, so what we've seen submitted so far contemplates driveway access to the feeder road of 288. If they can't get that for whatever reason, how will they mitigate? How will that not be a detrimental impact to Del Bello Lakes Boulevard? That's the question. So that's where the TIA would kick in. So right now, everything up until this point contemplates the two different entrances, one on Del Bello and one on off the feeder. Does that make sense? Sure.
So if they don't, what would be their mitigation plan to limit, you're saying this is
Right.
what we want from them,
Exactly.
to limit traffic on Del Bello Lakes. But we just said that it's going to be there's a thoroughfare plan on that road that's going to lead to the 160 acres.
True.
Help me understand why.
And the thousands of homes back there.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to track in my brain, like, how, if they can't get that on 288
Right.
for whatever reason, and then they have to make the cut through on Del Bello,
Right.
they need to provide us with a study.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So how would they mitigate that impact? So I think Councilman Lands brought it up, perfectly. So the types of traffic that you're going to have going to a dealership is different than you're going to have going to the ball fields, right?
It's going to, yes.
I mean, the 18-wheelers and the unloading and all this other stuff. Do they need an extra right-hand lane into the dealership? I don't know. Do they need something else? Do they need a big wide swing to get in?
Got it.
Well, where Keating was before in Alvin, there's several dealerships along 528, and I see them every morning. They'll line up in the chicken lane and the continuous left turn lane, and they unload from the middle of 528, for goodness sakes. That's not a good
So
situation.
then it would probably be in our best interest to, as a council, approach TxDOT and say, hello.
That's best for everybody, no question.
And that's my concern is, if TxDOT isn't having discussions with us about curb cuts right now, how do we proceed with developing on Del Bello if we don't know what we're doing on the curb cut and what impact and mitigation we have to do? Do you see what if TxDOT isn't going to talk to us about a curb cut, then we can't know really what the impact is to then develop Del Bello to then know if we have to mitigate it or not.
Your traffic engineer can do that. He can run the two scenarios. Like if this is the only way to come in and out, here's what we would have to do. And if this isn't the only way, then here's what we would do. Your TIA guy.
I just don't know how soon we'll know that because of TxDOT. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Again, we go back to TxDOT drives that decision. So, okay.
Understand.
So how does that condition go in here? It just states that we want them to have a plan?
Joe's, is this not? Wouldn't this get addressed with the site plan itself anyway? Because they'll have to do a specific site plan, right? Or is this all we're going to see?
There are, I'll have to go back and check the design criteria manual, what sort of thresholds it provides. On a standard regular situation, if a property is zoned appropriately on a major thoroughfare where access is assumed, that we may not hit that threshold. This is a sort of a unique situation, so it would be best to include it as a condition.
And what is the condition? An updated TIA?
Yeah. Do we already have a TIA on the original Del Bello
I'm
Lakes?
sure Del Bello Lakes has an original one, so it would just need to be updated, right?
Correct. An updated TIA needs to be approved by the city engineer if an access is denied by TxDOT or an access is not approved by TxDOT from the 288 feeder road.
Okay.
Okay, now my brain understands it.
It was an education for all of us. So we have 4 conditions. We have the no RV, motorhome, et cetera, no public storage, self-storage, et cetera. 2, and then only 3. And then the traffic impact analysis being updated and provided to the city for city engineer approval.
And can we get a commitment? Chris said, I think facetiously, but we mean it seriously, that this council will move and favor helping us on getting that curb cut. Because without Manvel, I can tell you our chances go from whatever it is to about 2%. If Manvel puts its efforts into it, our chances, I don't want to handicap, but our chances go up exponentially. If the city says, no, we think this is a great idea, we really, really want it, and there are a lot of ways that gets said, which is, yeah, it's okay. Or, no, we think this is absolutely essential, and we're the city of Manvel, and we want TxDOT to do this.
No, absolutely. Mr. Midsberg, I think if you send me that letter tonight, I would sign it tonight. I think that makes sense for everybody. Regardless of how this vote goes, I think you could probably assume maybe where I'm going to vote. But I want to work with you guys, and I want to see this, if it passes, be a successful project for you guys. And one of the way that is successful is that 288 access, and I think that's a big value add to Keating Toyota as it exists today, and then also for this future development. So we can either draft something up together, or Chris, if you have something that you might want to draft up and send it to me, we can take a look at it and get that signed and add it to our agenda to talk about with TxDOT when we have our regular conversations with them.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, so council, whoever is going to make the motion, we'll call the question call for a motion. If you can just make it with the 11 conditions, which is the original 8 plus these 3 additional conditions. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
To accept the ordinance with the 8 original and the 3 additional.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Bonner.
I'll second that.
We have a second from Councilman Oplager. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes in a 6-1 vote.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So it was a good discussion. Look forward to working with you guys and seeing the rest of the 16 acres developed commercially.
So Mayor and council members and city staff and city attorney, thank you. It has been a while. I think somebody used the word that folks were exhausted. We're not exhausted. We're a little tired, but we're not exhausted. And I am committed to working, Mayor, with you and with members of council, and to being available for input, feedback. We see this, and Keating sees this, and I speak for them as well, as a joint effort and a joint development. We want that car dealership to look terrific, and we want the retail on Del Bello to be something that everybody here is extraordinarily proud of, and that you say, hey, you guys did a terrific job. So
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
we look
members.
forward. I think we'll be reaching out and coordinating a time, whether it's a workshop or maybe an initial discussion between you guys and staff to talk about some of these other items, the development contribution, the acre feet discussion. So we'll look to have that set up here with you guys pretty soon. And best way you can help us out tonight is take some cookies and cupcakes. That's all right.
That's
Can
a deal.
I just say something
Thank
real
you
quick
all.
to end that? I just want to say thank you for your willingness to not say no, but also hopefully we can all look back on this future council and be proud, like you said, something that Manvel was proud of, and it was worth the wait. I really do hope that. And thank you for Anson and Chris for really focusing on bringing jobs to Manvel. That's a big deal for us. We really, really appreciate that, and for taking care of our officers. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Agenda item number 2, consideration and possible action to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement between the city of Manvel and Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid. Manager Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is now for something completely different. We've been approached by the Dennis Quaid show, quite frankly. It's called Viewpoint. It's part of the Discover America series, if you've seen it on PBS. And so, they don't really have normal commercials on a PBS. They'll have a 50-minute long show or 55-minute long show, and then there are these little excerpts for the next 5 minutes or so until the next show starts. And one of the things that they're doing now is this Discover America program, where they sort of highlight different communities across the nation. And Manvel has been approached about possibly doing the work that it would take. They would come down, I think it's 8 hours of footage and interviews and whatnot. And then what's really exciting is after they put the spots together, the promo spots, I think there's 3 different ones, if I remember correctly, Mayor. There was a 5-minute, and then like a 60-second one, and then a 3-minute one. So these different ones, they're ours to keep. So we can put them on our website, on our socials and stuff like that. And what is it about Manvel? Why Manvel? And so it's pretty exciting. And when we started kind of digging into it while we were on the phone with them, no, not Dennis himself, but it's like, man, I know he was from Texas. And then I started looking it up. Not only is he from Texas, but he's from Houston. Not only is he from Houston, he's from Bel Air. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah, well, how about that? So, candidly, the amount that they're asking for our help to basically pay for their team to come down and the photographers and everything, it's within the limit that the city manager can approve. And I thought this was something. Right now, only the mayor and I had a chance to talk about this, so I wanted to get in front of you all and see what you thought about it. it feels like a no-brainer, but I still wanted to come and say it out loud. So the total out-of-pocket cost for the city would be about $30,000. But again, what it would take to put this together, and the professionals, actually doing this for us, did talk to Bobby a little bit about, the idea of using our hotel our hot tax money, since it is for, advertising and ultimately potentially tourism and getting people excited about coming to Manvel. And Bobby, that we feel good about being able to do that. What would be the process for that?
Contract with them that would spell it out with reporting requirements and all kind of things.
Okay.
Sorry.
Councilman Bonner?
How much control do we have on content?
Oh, actually, we get to review whenever they're all said and done. Then they'll send it to us before it goes live. So, quite a bit, it sounds like.
Any questions or comments from council? All right, do we have a motion to provide any action?
I can make a motion to provide all support and action.
Thank you, Councilman Hudson. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a second from Councilman Oplager. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Look forward to seeing the end product. Agenda item number 3, this is discussion on city involvement in the upcoming legislative session. We had a long meeting at our last meeting, so we pushed this to this one. We've had Representative-elect Jeff Berry reach out to us, Representative Cody Fasute. I know we'll have Senator Middleton reach out to us about what are the city's legislative priorities, what are things that are of importance to the city. So one, we wanted to talk with council and see if there was anything specific that you guys wanted brought up in that conversation. You'll see as one of the attachments in the packet, TML is now sending out in their legislative updates a list of all of the bills that have been filed that pertain to cities. So as you see those come up, of course, you can flag them, let staff know about them, express the importance of them to your legislatures. But if there's anything as a city that we see that would be of importance now, we can discuss that. There's also opportunities as we move forward to partner in lobbying Austin as the locally elected officials for the city. There's Brazoria County Day that happens February 23rd to the 25th. Would encourage all of you guys to go. There's a website called MyTLL that you can sign up for an account and you can flag bills and it gives you updates on those bills whenever there's any action taken or if a scheduling or a hearing is scheduled. They have to do it 72 hours in advance. And that way you can go up and reach out to your legislatures or even sign up to speak at the hearing. But I wanted to open it up for council and staff because I think this is an opportunity for us to collaborate on if there's any specific legislative priorities that we would want to bring up to our representatives in Austin. Is there anything that comes to mind? I see Councilman Bonner, you're unmuted.
I think I read, and I may have been totally wrong, but it seemed like I counted 28 bills that basically pertain to the doing away with parts of not school tax, but the homeowners taxes, and there was a whole bunch of discussion, looked like on the same agenda item. It was a different representative had his form of the bill. So I'd like to see us kind of, somebody that knows how to read these better, kind of get that down to one or two of those, because it seems like that was an important topic about the reducing the taxes to our citizens. So if any of those are going to have any life to them, which we won't know right away. I don't know how that process starts in mid-January, and all of these are just proposed bills. None of them have even, this is to decide which ones go to committee the way I understand it. So, but it'd be nice to know who's going to be the button pusher that we need to work on amongst multiple bills with the same subject.
I know, Councilman, for me, we see Austin many times that they see some of these bigger cities that abuse their local powers, and the state then tries to make it a one-size-fits-all solution. And they try to eliminate different things that allows us as a city and us as a community that our voters want to see, strips us of that ability. And I think we need to advocate for local control. we have a Republican as governor, a Republican lieutenant governor, a Republican House, a Republican Senate, but yet many times you see in Austin, they vote counter to what conservatism is about, which is local control. We are the ones that interact with our community on a day-to-day basis, and by them removing that control from us, it's asking us to do our jobs and represent our community with one hand tied behind our back. So I know for me, working with the legislature to ensure that we have the ability to work within our community to meet the needs of our community is a big one. There's been some bills filed. I think, Bobby, you highlighted one that I think it said for cities over 80,000 in population, that it essentially strips zoning from those cities and eliminates zoning in those cities. Is that correct?
I don't remember that one, but there were several highlighted. That could have been one.
Okay, so I know that's of importance to me, making sure that we as a city have the ability to serve our community in the way that they want to be served, and not Austin restricting our ability to do that.
The yeah. That one bill is kind of scary.
The opt-out bill?
Yeah. Well, the one that with a county with a population of 370,000 or more that contains more than 6 cities each, the Commissioner's Court of the county may issue an order amending an agreement to regulate subdivision plats. It's now all of a sudden the county's going to be able to tell us as a city what we can do.
That's a good one to call out.
There's a lot on here. Eminent domain, MUDs.
Councilman Perry?
So is there anything that can help us address, we talked about the development of the city center in the workshop that will lessen the burden of the cost on the taxpayers of the city? If that's something that we can revisit, before we kind of delved into a special district, but something that would lessen the tax burden, the cost burden for developing that city center from the taxpayers and put it on whatever's internally within that.
Some of these grant programs could fit, but again, you have to study the grants really, really careful once they're out there to make sure what else do they tie you to. That's the biggest thing. But there are some that when you read them on the surface, seems like maybe they could fit into some public use.
Yeah, but if there's something legislatively that can be done, because obviously they only meet every other year, so if there's something that can be visited or proposed in this session that would help us begin to move forward with getting funding for the city center and lessen the burden on the taxpayers locally.
I know one that a bill I've advocated for since 2021 has been that if you are a city under 50,000 in population and there's a disaster declared and your TxDOT controlled traffic lights go out, you are not able to put any traffic control devices. The city had a situation during the 21 freeze that we put out stop signs, and basically we had TxDOT reach out to us and basically smacked our hand and said, you can't do that. Now, if you're over 50,000 in population, you take control of those traffic lights, and so it gives you that authority. But we have 2 major highways that go through our city. Specifically, Highway 6 has those traffic lights. We should be able to regulate traffic if the power is out in a state of emergency. So that's a personal one for me, but I think that's an important one for our city, for Alvin, even Pearland. I mean, they're over 50,000 in population, but 518 is a state-controlled road. And during the winter freeze, you had people flying 90, 100 miles an hour down Highway 6, and when all lights are out, that's pretty dangerous. So that's a very minute one, but it's an important one to me. There's a lot that's listed there. So council, I would say take a look at those, and if any stand out to you, let's flag those, and we can make sure to bring them up as a city. I don't know if there's any of importance to city staff from a public works perspective, HR perspective, finance. I know they're going to be talking a lot about property taxes and bond issuances. Development-wise, is there anything that city staff is seeing out there so far? Anything from the city secretary world, Alyssa?
Certainly the one about eliminating property tax is of concern.
2030.
Yeah, by 2035, yeah.
I think that's the one I was talking about that has like 28 different bills
We all want to see our property taxes lowered, but you have to have another funding source. And the voters of Texas said in 2019, we don't want to increase our sales tax percentage. So what other option is there going to be? The state, like school districts, could say, we're going to provide the funding to you and dictate the funding, but then they have a lot of say over how you operate. So if our state legislators are going to say, let's eliminate property taxes, which as a property taxpayer, I'd love that. You have to provide a viable other option, and I've not seen that up until this point. Would love it, but haven't seen it. What about for you, Chad? Anything that you're seeing out there so far?
Nothing that we're ready to speak about tonight, but again, I'd like to go over things thoroughly and see.
Excellent. What about for you, Robbie, from Public Works?
I'm gonna agree with Chad. I'll take a look.
And Rosie, I'm going to guess you're going to agree with Robbie, who's agreeing with Chad.
I'm agreeing with the property tax.
With the property tax. Chief, anything for you from a law enforcement perspective? Any bills that are standing out to you in your group right now?
Honestly, I hadn't even looked at it yet.
Okay. Bobby, anything for you? 4,000 concerns? All right. Well, we'll make sure to bring up some of these when the legislatures reach out, and then I know we'll work with Bobby and our city secretary's office to provide regular updates, and keep an eye on your TML emails. They're going to start coming out more frequently with updates and activities and ways to get involved and to help advocate for what we want to see here in Manvel. Any other discussion on agenda item number 3?
I
Do you want to
personally, would like to speak to the one offenses against utility employees. Clearly, I have an interest in that.
What bill?
It's HB 1160. An assault against a person the actor knows is an employee or agent of the utility, including municipality-owned utility, while the person's performing a duty within the scope of employment. I guess this comes with all the attacks on utility. Yes. That, and then anything that has to do with registered sex offenders and missing children's. For me, that's a big one. And then also anything that has to do with the MUDs. We got to figure out a way to limit how long they get to keep taking our money. And then also, I don't know, I haven't seen that on here, but something to do with our toll roads, because our toll roads, they're supposed to recoup the money, but they don't seem to be ending anytime soon. And that's a big thing that a lot of people have on their minds is, well, you have a new toll road and it's going to be forever, instead of saying until we recoup, kind of like the MUDs. So just wanted to mention those.
Those are good. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right. Well, we'll move on to Mayor and Council comments. This is our last meeting before Christmas, and with Thanksgiving just happening, I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you. I think tonight's meeting showed the collaboration and discussion and how we can respectfully talk about important items, yet we might be on different sides of the votes. And so thank you to staff for all that you do in serving our community and serving us as council, and fielding a variety of emails and questions that you get from us. It's much appreciated. And I hope that the community has a great Christmas and a great holiday season. We do have homes, if you've signed up, that you can pick up your yard sign to advertise that you're one of the homes that's competing in the competition for Christmas lights. We had 14 homes that signed up to compete. And so we'll be able to drive around, check those out, and vote for which ones are your favorite. Excited about that. And then on December 14th, correct, is the Christmas parade and celebration that's happening beforehand. Is that correct?
From 4 to 8 p.m., 4 to 6 is the pre-parade activities. We'll have a extra large double lane snow slide, a photo booth set up with pictures with Santa. We'll have frames provided for those. They'll print on the spot. Hot cocoa, cookies. And then the parade lineup will start about 6, and then 6:30 is the parade. And then we'll have a ceremonial tree lighting by the one and only Mr. Mayor.
That works.
Only 14 homes.
14 homes. You got to start somewhere. It was 7, and then it grew to 14. I don't know if the Atkinsons signed up. They're competing.
Can I say something?
Oh, absolutely.
There's not enough time.
No, Mary Ann, you guys go all out. You guys.
I know, but there's not enough time. It all depends on the weather. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Starting today.
There you go. Well, we're hoping to build this in to be yearly, and it will give people time to prepare knowing that it's coming. So we're excited that you guys signed up and looking forward to seeing your setup there.
I've been working on it for 2 weeks.
And Harry's been working on it for 2 weeks. He's coming for you guys. He's coming for you there.
My back hurts.
Well, we're excited. And then Alyssa, will we be able to, the parade route, will that be posted soon? Do you know when that's going to be ready?
Yeah, it's already been complete. I think Chief's given it his seal of approval. So Tammy and I gave him a little bit of heckling because we changed the route up on him in the last minute this year. But I think it's going to flow a lot more smoothly. And there's a couple applicants that have like a 20 to 25 or 15 to 20. But I think I added all in total. You'll see probably around, as of today, I think it was 45 to 50 different things going through the parade. So that'll be exciting.
45 to 50 different floats and participants.
Yeah, we had like a 15 to 20 person motorcycle gang, and then there was a 25 gang.
No, we don't
group.
want to say gang. Club. It's a club, Alyssa.
Club. So sorry. Birds.
Birds.
Sorry, and slingshots, like 25 slingshots. So that'll be.
That's going to be
Cool to
very
see.
cool. Well, we appreciate the fun committee for putting that together. Any mayor or any council comments that you guys might have? Okay.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Councilman Perry with the second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0. Go get a cupcake and cookie, y'all.